Everybody. I screwed up big time, and I will explain in just a moment, but I think you have waited long enough for some Cultist Simulator tonight. So let's get this show on the road. So I think for the purposes of VODs, I'm going to just turn the cast off at 11 o'clock and reset everything. So yeah, a little bit of an agenda for tonight, although I think most people will not be around to hear this. There was something that I was planning on streaming tonight, which would sort of supplant Cultist Simulator, not because I wanted it to be that way. That's just sort of how the timing turned out. But what I didn't realize, I thought it was an 11 a.m. rather than an 11 p.m. release. And so I am not actually able to do the thing that I had in mind for basically what will be another 2.5 hours. So I'm starting the cast late for really no reason. The thing that's most ridiculous is probably the last half hour or so has been waiting for a download to complete, only to suddenly realize, wait a minute, I'm not allowed to do this yet. So, them's the breaks. But it does mean that I get to do something that I was a little worried I wouldn't be able to do tonight, which is to stream Cultist Simulator. And the reason I'm a little bit worried about that was because I am very likely going to be going to the Dirty Rectangles on next Wednesday, which means, of course, that I'm not going to be around to stream at that time. So it all turns out well. But with that in mind, if you are watching live, I'm going to turn the stream off. I'll say when I'm doing it in favor of the thing that I originally had planned. Let me make sure that my announcement is properly lined up. Okay, cool. We are able to say we are streaming under Cultist Simulator. So yeah, I'll do a little bit of Cultist Simulator. I can't promise massive breakthroughs or anything along those lines. If you're watching on a VOD, it'll probably just be that there are two separate videos and nobody can complain. And, well, I mean, that doesn't stop somebody from complaining, but I figure it's probably the best way to handle it. And if you're watching live, you're going to be saying, oh, you know, I'm really enjoying this fun, arcane little card game. Why do you have to go away and spoil it with this other thing, which is totally unlike Cultist Simulator? But life isn't fair. So, as always, who is responsible? Well, if you watch... Hey, Johnny Big Time! I'm sorry, I totally lied to you. I need to wait about 2 hours and... Well, it's a bit closer to 2 hours and 20 minutes now. But I'm hoping... I was going through the old notes that I wrote. I'll explain everything when the hour arrives. But I was going over some old stuff that I wrote, and I hope people really like it. But I know it will be late for most people, so I think the opportunity will go away. But anyways, thank you very much for hanging out. I screwed up. But anyways, many of you will already be familiar with it, but it cannot be said enough. Please do follow these people. Design, writing, and coding by Alexis Kennedy. Production, marketing, and biz by Lottie Bevan. UI design and coding by Martin Nerukar, who does have his own game coming out, Nowhere Profit. It is actually out, you can play it, but there is still more development being done. Art by Catherine Unger, Clockwork Cuckoo, Lottie Bevan, and Sarah Gordon. Music by Maribeth Solomon, Brent Barkman, Mickey Erb for Mickey Mar Productions Limited. Hey, Duxel! Audio by Soundcuts. Additional writing by Lottie Bevan. Additional coding by Fraser McCormick and Chris Payne. Additional design by Calvin Porter. And special thanks to Sonia and PK, Matt Hosty, Haley, Urias, and literally everyone who has ever sent feedback or a bug report. Thank you. And if you want to send feedback or bug reports, do so at support@weatherfactory.biz. Do check out the blog, weatherfactory.biz. And if you're not following it on Twitter, @FactoryWeather. In fact, I believe there will be a development stream coming up tomorrow, and it might be the first one that I can catch because I have the day off. Let us continue the story of Roland the Dancer. Now, as always, I have a bit of amnesia with regards to this game, so I'm going to need a minute to sort of figure out where I'm at. I'm also going to take a moment here. I'm hoping that Black Friday or something like that introduces some deals for high quality mice, because I'm getting a little tired of using keys to zoom in all of the games. One of the big revelations from last week, the Guise of the Viper. The Viper coils where the sea folds itself against land. I must find a place at the water's edge. Perhaps Sulochana can help, if I bring her secrets about other places. Some part of you can roam in serpent shape. Send it to accompany your followers. To a place where it can perform the dance you must dance. If you have problems finding the place, talk to Sulochana about secret histories. So that'll be our next step. Of course, we're already using the talk verb to try and get some more recruits. We should be... I think we could probably... I don't think the Grail is going to offer us anything that we really need to... to overcome any obstacles. So in theory, we could do some minor expeditions, but I do have a very conservative streak in this game in terms of what I can actually accomplish. So the Weather Factory people have an Etsy page now too, where they sell, yes, you absolutely can, Duxel. The Church of Merch is a very welcome place. I hope you guys, so there's a couple reasons why you guys should check that out if you are interested in such products. I believe it's a little bit of a trial. I believe it's a little bit of a trial run. So if you are particularly interested in seeing more physical merchandise, and I know there was talk about a few things for stretch goals, which were definitely very ambitious in terms of the overall, like the amount raised would have to be fairly substantial. And I think that's appropriate because if you're making a game and your stretch goal is physical merchandise, you want to make sure you have a really big cushion because you are, special ability in, having ability in game development, which Weather Factory clearly does very well, does not immediately imbue them with any special insight so far as producing physical goods and shipping them. As the recipient of a product from the Church of Merch, I can say that they actually do a very good job with physical merchandise, but obviously that is something after the success of the game, not something that was tied into the creation of the original product. So if you guys want to find new ways to support the game, if you've already bought it, if you've bought all of your friends' copies and things like that, do use that link, www.etsy.com/ca/shop/weatherfactory. I believe you don't even need the question mark and all of that at the end. I think that's just to say where the the search was directed from. And of course, if you go to etsy.com, ETSY, you can just do the search in the bar for Weather Factory, where dark, delicious things live. 5-star rating, and you can get everything from an iris pin to a sticker pack to posters. It's all good stuff, and I have a feeling that I think they've said as much, that there's going to be a bit of it's going to be a bit of a trial run for some other things, and I have some guesses as to what those things will be, but I have no intention whatsoever of saying them, because I have noticed on occasion, if I say things, people take them with a little bit more weight than they really should. I think most people here understand that, but I am a guy who likes playing Weather Factory. I am not in any way affiliated with it, other than the fact that I really like their game and their accounts, and I think all of you should like this game and those accounts. And Duxel has bought a bundle that has a leather-bound notebook, the 1 GB USB, and a pin, and a sticker pack. Oh yeah, that's I think it's called like the Adepts bundle or something like that. I can't remember exactly which one it was, but yeah, it's good stuff there. Anyways, so where were we? We've got a bit more lore. I've been going through my books. My 2 benefactors have proposed, which means they're now off the table as far as any revenues are concerned. Of course, I'm getting a bit better at my job at the Ecdysis Club. I've got the superior contract now, and of course, I've now got my Viper guys, which means that the expeditions will be a little bit more meaningful. We've exhausted Moorlands, and we've exhausted the Oriflamme's auction house, so unless I want to sell things, I don't really have much use for those. So the next little while is going to be generating as much lore and followers as I can until I sort of free myself up for some other uses, and that will come fairly quickly. So let's unpause, because I only have a few hours before the other event comes up, and away we go. The most honorable Marchioness of Stanford has been heard to declare that she doesn't quite understand exactly what she saw in me. That's fair. Let's go to the Lodge of the Sage Knight. Oh! Alright, well, we know how we can get rid of that. So, fascination. Light leaks through the cracks. My mind is brighter than it ever was. The higher I rise, the more I see. Last night, in the billowing blue of the Lodge of the Sage Knight, I sat on velvet cushions and watched two dead contend with shining swords. They came with the place, says the woman who rules here now, the one who once called herself Gallagher. I was not the Sage Knight, if that's what you're wondering. He went higher into the Mansis, long before I came here. My attention has drifted. The swords sparkle like falling water. The dead move like dancers. Should be. Okay, let me rearrange. Alright, so I've got my fascination. We'll get rid of that right away, so we'll combine that with dread. Of course, it would be nice to have some contentment to get rid of it, but as we work with what we have. The doors of vision swing wide. A little darkness will mellow my light. Even dread has its uses. And better not. I must be careful of the company I keep. Okay, so I can do more exploration. I suppose I should start using these occult scraps. The Eyes of Sin, thank you very much for the host. I don't know if you got my Discord message, but I really messed up on scheduling. So the thing I talked to you about, I know you don't know what it is, but there is something that I was very excited for you to see. Oh, I'm paused. That won't be happening until 11 o'clock, so in about 2 hours and 15 minutes. And hopefully you were here to hear that, because otherwise I'm going to feel like I'm a moron. Not that that would be any different from how I normally feel. So my own heart pumps more strongly today. Don't have much use for the vitality because the Steely Physique is pretty, that's quite enough. And lovely. I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, for now we will continue the story of Roland. If I had known that it was that all of those things that I was doing, I didn't beg, not quite. Basically, if I'd known a bit better, I would have started the stream earlier, and I would have just let all those updates go on in the background. I think the internet connection's good enough to allow that stuff to happen during the cast now, but I made a mistake, so. You're going to be quietly listening for a little bit as you have some work that you need to finish, so you might be a tad unresponsive in chat, but you'll be here. Thank you for letting me know, and I hope you have a productive time away. All right, let's go back to the Gaiety Club, Gaiety Theater, to get some money. The stage awaits, hot and clean and bare and bright. If I move the moves and step the steps and do what is required, they'll pay me. I should actually also be writing a treatise. So, trembling in the air, the sun flickers like a shadow, dreams ripple behind the surface of mirrors. I must be careful not to drift from the waking world. Fascination may provoke visions. So that was one of the reasons why I was pretty adamant. I didn't check the clock, but I do want to make sure that I don't leave things like fascination to chance. I'm pretty confident in terms of being able to handle it now, but it would be nice to put the pin in it before it becomes too troublesome. Hirschfeld identifies blood, silver, design, and the worms as the central axes of each of the histories, and claims that the so-called second history is the true one. Secret histories are layered beneath the one that we know, like notes in a rare wine. This is a detail of one of those histories. Exploring with this scrap of knowledge may uncover secret locations in the capital. So that'll replace the one that we didn't exactly use, but lost, but used for other purposes. So I could start reading the Locksmith's Dream. Nope, this is the second volume. The locksmith stream, a light through the keyhole. The first, actually, let me just think about this. I've got moth, lantern, grail, forge. All right, I don't have any knock, but I'll get that from reading the. Galmer's work, and because we did just visit the. Because we did visit the appropriate location, let's read what she has to say. So, The Locksmith's Dream, Light Through the Keyhole, the first volume of Teresa Galmer's examination of the parallels in the mystic dreams of artisans. Now, of course, if you were to be some min-maxing monster, you could just say, well, I want the knock right away. But that's not how you read books, damn it. Do you start by reading the second volume of anything? No, you read it in order. And so that is exactly what we'll do. So the Snake Guise is a way for you, the player character, to take part in the expeditions? Possibly, Duxel. I've not used it yet. I've gotten it before, but we married someone before I got a chance to use it. So that will be something that I learn, possibly on this cast. So, the parallels and mystic dreams experienced by carpenters, masons, and other artisans, and what they purport to reveal about the architecture of the world. Sometimes mordant, sometimes funny. No one has ever explained why Galmer devoted herself to the chaotic exploration of artisans' dreams. Alright, we found another body. And the Course of the Heart. So if I want, I can combine these into a lesson learned. We'll see whether or not I do. The air is curdled now. I am home again in this lumpen flesh. Better, perhaps. Interesting. So it seems I did not... I feel like I've done this before, but I didn't remember it. It seems that dread and fascination now just annihilate each other rather than the dread remaining after the fascination is dealt with. That's definitely a lot... It's quite a bit more merciful than I'm accustomed to. All right, this place merits for closer investigation. So, Cater and Hero Limited. It's been abandoned since the explosion when both the owners died. The machine stands silent. The building is a collapsing shell. Mr. Cater was known to display peculiar trinkets in his office. Perhaps some yet remain. So, this is where I've actually worked myself into a little bit of a corner because I do have enough to sort of upgrade some of these individuals. And I wasn't planning on doing exploration so early, but let's give this a shot. I should be done with the investigation in time. So in this case, we will send Enid and Slee, and we'll chuck a couple of funds in it. Now it's entirely possible that we will blow it because these are not high stats to be going in with. But the remaining factory walls could topple at any moment. Blackened timbers creak in pain. We must equip ourselves properly and move with dreadful care. Expeditions need at least 1 funds per obstacle. Followers will defeat obstacles. If you run out of funds or followers, the expedition ends. Might have been wiser for me to actually just put the 1 funds in so I could run off a little bit faster, but the die is cast, so let's go through the white door, and I believe that requires health. Got a little money for our trouble, and I think I will do my commission on Edge. It's here somewhere. Write a brief treatise on the Edge principle. So the real dilemma here is if I have like a second knock that I need. And it's actually fairly likely that will happen, but we'll see. I've given my agents an opportunity to serve. Let us hope it ends well for all. Okay, so treacherous ground, pits and quags and sudden tumbles. The earth here cannot be trusted. We need strong hands or clear sight, forge or lantern. Well, we definitely have another lantern we can throw at this, and we'll see if we can convert that hanger on to help us as well. Time and again we hear of the wood which rises from the world's foundation. All trees reach for light. What does the wood reach for? Is there a difference between light and light? I think the key to dreams of the wood might be one of these, the one that isn't exactly real. And we gain the Watchman's Secret. It has been expressed like this: each hour has its color, but color exists only where there is light. We gain some erudition for our studies, and now we'll move on to Volume 2. The second volume of Teresa Gallmer's examination into the parallels of the mystic dreams of artisans. The frontispiece has been slashed with a razor. In this volume, Gallmer records fewer dreams and explicates more on her own elaborate theories. We see this again and again. What is below can't escape what is above. Okay, so come with me. So this might be a little bit of a problem because that'll be some more mystique to fuel the suspicion. We'll see how we can handle that. And we've got an edge hanger on. So let's, oh yeah, you know what? If I upgrade the lantern hanger on, well, I can still make them a higher disciple. So let's just get that out of the way. I don't think it'll be enough to move the needle for the current expedition, but there's no point in giving up right away. Old unhappy far off things. Moth finds light in the dark, and so do I. The world as it is. Mirrors are calm, the sun is steady, the glory recedes. I am sane, if that means anything. No fascination drives your visions. It's over for now. Alright, a moment in time, in another moment it'll be gone. So secret histories and moth influence. And Duxel says this game legitimately makes you want to find an old bookstore and delve into occult books. One thing that was kind of funny, when I was little, in elementary school, there was an obstacle, a danger, or a premature conclusion. It was like a paranormal encyclopedia, and it had some absolutely nutty things, like just obviously completely made up to fill in pages. And then it had some actual like history things in terms of like people who did certain things. And I mean, I grew up in a religious household, so reading something like that is forbidden. And, you know, obviously, you know, they can't see me do that at school. So I'm able to, you know, to look at this sort of stuff. And that was sort of the big, that was the big draw of it. I couldn't really say that even the more factual stuff, I could never say turned me into sort of somebody who really like delved into the occult or something like that. But some of the times, like just every once in a while, there's a couple of lines where I'm like, hey, I remember like that, you know, that kind of seems a little bit like that book I read in elementary school. And it's kind of fun in that sense. So. All right, the Watchman shows mercy neither to our obstacles nor to us. If we're lucky, we may make it through. So I'm just trying to think if there's anything else that I can do. I can bring Tristan in, but Tristan is not really in a state to improve my odds here. So I think we're just going to roll the dice, and potentially we wind up with an injury. That's one of the reasons why I did this, if I'm totally honest. Okay, so I've got some restlessness, which I'm already going to be getting, so let's not worry too much about that. Let's go back to the Orchard of Lights, and we did well. We got a Forgotten Chronicle. Last night I walked in the Orchard of Lights. I plucked the fruit which is always ripe and consumed it in 2 bites. The taste is not to be forgotten. As I licked the glowing juices from my fingers, I saw a message carved into the bark of a tree, and when I woke, I recorded that message, all I could remember, in my diary. So Forgotten Chronicle, a story of a city without a gate, of a queen who was not born, of a war that was not fought. Exploring with this scrap of knowledge may uncover secret locations on the continent. So I'll put that in position 3. And I finished my manuscript. Or the manuscript, as the text actually says. Oops. My bad. So I don't believe I can do anything about Lantern. That has to be like 4. Yeah, 4. So let's go back to the Gaiety Theater before they fire me. And with any luck, I'll get an opportunity to cut loose. And we might as well go back through the white door because I don't have much use for the dream slot otherwise. Half-glimpsed wistfulness has touched me. The ceremony is resident as a thunder in the church. I know it well. I wrote it myself. Okay, so we're actually going to use... we're going to do this upgrade right away. So we'll take the pawn. We will use the Waking Chant. And we're just shy. To promote a believer to a disciple, I'll need to provide an appropriate aspect to the cult of at least a 7th intensity. So we've got 6. But, fortunately, we also have the Merovine idol. The Merovi would take little wooden idols to placate the witch twins they feared in their lake. The lake is almost dry now, but the idols and the witch twins yet remain, yet shadowed with the aspect of the heart. So my follower will kneel as a novice and rise as an initiate. I will administer the necessary oaths myself. So again, it's pretty unlikely that we're going to get... It's pretty unlikely. Well, it's certain that we're not going to get them in time. Either this will succeed or it will not. Safe across treacherous ground. We're mud splattered and thorns scratched, but we've made it through. Good news. And looks like I'm going to get further restlessness for not upgrading my my desire. The finest artisans all dream of the white door in the end. I'm no artisan, only a scholar. I think there's a secret that all these artisans know, but I think that secret is only half the story. So I have a feeling that the combination of these will tell me that the next level is knock. Oh, nope, that's an ascent. Hang on. Oh, that's right, I need to put my desire in there. I should have done that, and probably would have kept me from having that season pop up. Oh yes, I can be studying, and I should be. So, let's see if there's any other books in a language that I actually know. The War of the Roads, 1450 to 1580, Censored Edition. Willis Ford describes the War of the Roads, an event in a history other than our own, in detail, but numerous pages have been removed. The name of the publisher is blacked out, and an ominous slip stapled to the cover explains that Willis Ford has been excised. In this past, a score or more of longs were made. They brokered a peace with the Forge of Days, long enough to set England on a path of early conquest and eventual destruction. The Forge itself devoured the greatest among them. Tonight I sense an opportunity. Tonight I could attract attention. If I cease to hold back, if I commit myself more fully. So this would be good for some extra money. I suspect I won't gain any more admirers, but we'll see. It says, treasures lie before us. This will be great because we won't need to worry about notoriety for too much longer. So I am a lissome package of flesh and blood. I felt all their eyes upon me. Afterwards I received a gift from an admirer. Too gaudy for my tastes, but I can sell it in the second-hand market. So, 2 funds for my trouble. Let's just head straight back, I think. I don't have anything to do with Lantern at the moment, so let's just keep on that. Okay, so I can get the Icy Atmosphere, which is probably not the done thing. Let's go back to the Orchard of Lights. Oh, that's a shame. It's an intensity of radiance. Light dews the skin and suffuses the air. A 6th order influence. Significant resonances or correspondences. This can be used in some rites to summon minions. If unused, it will become fascination. So let's find something to use 6 Lantern for. The invisible arts, Christopher Alapoli is said to have remarked, are as profitable as macrame, as ethical as tobacco smuggling, and in general as beneficial as roulette. Still, there's always the Orchard of Lights, and indeed the orchard, with its glowing fruit and peaceful mists, is a place to be yearned for. Last night I walked there in the peaceful hours of the deep night. Even after walking, I still carry with me a little of the glory of the old sun. Of course, this is no longer an unambiguously good event. I'm going to need to think a bit about how I dump this. I don't remember what the Crucible Soul... I think the Sunset Rite takes influence. Alright, I'm no further along my path of change. In the movements of the secret forms, I must find my lesson. So, there's one thing I'll do right away, and that's go to the White Door, and I will add my change. I forgot that it wasn't lore that I needed, it was the desire. So, the ascent is slow, winds from nowhere pluck at me. My skin is stained with light. The wood shivers with motion far below. And the place behind desire. Is there something to be learnt from the satisfaction of desire? And this may be a bit of a liability, so I may gain the notoriety before this is done. We cede our mouths to the thunder. We cede our feet to the dance. We cede our skins to the night. We do not cease. We do not cease. We do not cease. Okay. Waking chance up. We've got our percipient disciple, loyal and keen-sighted. And the temple unceasing grows. So, let's take a minute here. So normally when I send the occult scrap to Sulochana, she says that I need to go to Karashim. But I am slightly curious if that is set in stone or if that's randomly determined at the beginning. I don't think it would be randomly determined, but that doesn't mean... I mean, there's a very easy way to test, so... Sulochana stubs out her cigarette. Yes, if you want to study the language with me, yes. Yes, you can. Was there something else? As to that. And in the meantime, what else can I do? Not much with my vitality. I'll need to get rid of my restlessness at some point. I'll probably paint that away. But then I also need to worry about the intensity of radiance. So, I'm actually probably more willing to deal with the restlessness than I am to deal with the fascination. Well, okay, both of these will cancel each other out through a dream if I just let them run, or they normally would have, save for the fact I now have bleak thoughts, which means that this is now the priority. Although fascinations, oh man, they really knew how to mess with me on this one. All right, we'll figure out what to do as the opportunities come up, so... So I think in the grand scheme of things, dread is a little bit easier to get rid of. Okay, well, an opportunity at the Gaiety Theatre. Tonight I sense opportunity. Tonight I could attract attention. If I cease to hold back, if I commit fully, if I commit myself more fully. Tonight they'll notice that. So we've got 15 seconds to deal with the intensity of radiance. I think I might just paint it, and we'll see if we can get something more meaningful out of that. So. The royalty of England, according to Willis Ford, became the sovereigns of the Leashed Flame, destroying or transforming their enemies, conquering Europe, establishing the cathedrals to St. Spark. The alliance with the Forge begins to take its toll. The last few chapters are missing entirely. So we've gained furtive truth. Alright, so I'm going to organize these by language now. So we've got Greek, Latin... Greek, Latin, Latin, more Latin. So I'll start with the Greek just because it gives me this smaller number. Spend less time developing. And that's exactly what I was dreading. So there is some notoriety, but of course we are of heart. So I'll take care of that next. Cater's office. Two floorboards lift away to reveal a hollow beneath Cater's desk. The rats have made free with the biscuits he stored here against the peckishness which haunts the entrepreneur, but they could not penetrate this iron box. A moment with a crowbar will open it. So, get our money back. Thank you for leading the expedition needed. Alright, so we've got a few things here. We've got the Byzantine Tinct, so I'll knock 4 influence. That's particularly helpful because I don't really have... I need to find a better place for items. I'll work with that for now. The Profound Purple, worn only in histories where the Tyrian dye was not rich enough for the emperors. It is difficult to bar entry to one wearing this color. I love that idea. We've got a copy of Traveling at Night, the annotated dream journals of Christopher Allopoli, sometimes called the only readable occultist, literate, entertaining, bewildering. This is the 3rd volume, so that's a pretty high priority. And an iron spintrea. So I think my conversation priorities are going to be... we will upgrade some heart followers to deal with the suspicion that will likely emerge. I'm going to paint out this intensity of radiance, and yes, we'll leave it at that. I felt all their eyes on me, and afterwards I received a gift from an admirer. Too gaudy for my tastes, but I can sell it on the second-hand market. Alright, so I'm just for a quick peek. Yes, I'm not quite ready to sacrifice one of my own yet, but what about the Sunset Rite? So the Sunset Rite will happily use some influence. Okay, good news there. The next step, I suppose, would be... well, I suppose it would have to be... Well, okay, let's say Enid will bring in the knock, so if I add Edge, it'll probably be a little too weak for that. Oh, no, we can. A hint was once a living mortal and then a dead one, and now it is something else. Their summoning requires Lantern for the light which drew them to the Mansus, and Edge for the striving that they've endured in mirrors. Okay, well that's encouraging. I think Forge is a little... I think that's probably a bit too... Yeah, no, that's... I think this might actually be King Crucible now that I think of it, so it's perhaps a little ambitious for my my works, and I think it's fanciful to think that I'll be able to get the... Oh, hello. The end is beautiful. Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna try that one. I've got too many things that I like here. I'm just trying to remember what some of the other uses for Lantern were, but I'm okay with bringing up a hint. I won't use it. You'll notice actually I've very specifically not done certain things as this dancer, so. If a hunter has found notoriety, they will try to use it to create or upgrade evidence. If they're meticulous, they'll always succeed. If they're erratic, they're more likely to fail. But they can even occasionally create evidence without notoriety. To the Stag Door. The Stag Door, a ridged barrier of blood-streaked horn, huge enough for a ship to pass. It was broken long ago, and even now the scars are not quite healed. And a declivity beside the door rests a vast and wounded golden head. Its mouth would be large enough to swallow me, were its jaw not shattered. It is the name, Girby. It begins to intone its riddle. So we've got the Stag Door's riddle. What must open before the way opens? Answer this riddle to pass the Stag Door, and to be accounted a no. I don't believe I have that, so who could hear this and remain unmoved? The sleeping, the dead, the earth, the sky. This invokes, acknowledges, and welcomes passage of to silence. I don't think that's it. It's definitely not... It's definitely not either one of these, so there's... Hello, Mystery Man 64. How are you doing tonight? I think we'll just keep going through the white door until we have some more level 3 lore. We can always try it, but I don't think we have what we need, so let's throw another occult scrap on the pile. I definitely need to get some more bodies before I try another expedition, but we did reasonably well for ourselves, and clearly because... I'm doing expeditions a little earlier than I thought I was. I'll start upgrading my followers a bit earlier as well. So, we always change at the sea first. Karashim is a good place. Karashim is a good place these days. Then further and further afield, but not in person. Never in person. In your other self. Feel free to come back to me with more lore if you're not sure where to go. If you're looking for anything but change, I can't help you. Alright, so... It'll be a while before we make it to Karashim, but it's good to know. Still trying to do a Moth Ascension. It's the same one that I've done. So this particular save I only play on cast. As much as I enjoy playing this game, and this game is good enough in the sense that it's fairly easy. In fact, they go so far as to let you hit browse files and take your saves out. So I can play the game sort of privately if I want, but I thought the whole purpose of me taking a break from Cultist Simulator was to actually be able to play the game, you know, without knowing anything for the first time since basically it came out. So I get to play this game for a few hours once a week, except every third Wednesday. So in this case, the progress is quite a bit slow. I mean, this is the funny thing, right? It's like once upon a time I could maybe not claim to know the most about Cultist Simulator, but definitely to know a very substantial amount compared to the average player because I'd been living with it for months. And of course now I know pretty much less than anybody else who's played the game by virtue of the fact that I'm doing the slowest playthrough known to man. But you guys, I've actually been utterly floored by the feedback that I've been getting from it. It's been pretty much universally positive. And I'm one of these silly folks who says things like, well, I wouldn't watch me. And it's true. But boy, do I appreciate it. So I don't really plan on changing the format too much, unless I find like a better way of balancing the two. So, I should also say too, I'm actually going for Heart rather than Moth, but it's the Change Ascension. So I was going to talk about upgrading people. Right, it was upgrading my Heart because I'm very likely going to get some evidence against me. And wait a minute. Heart wasn't it. Moth is the one that destroys the evidence. At least I'm pretty sure it is. So we will upgrade her first. I'm certain that my adversary has lodged a copy of their notes elsewhere with their solicitor, or with their superior, or even with a contact in the press. This is troubling. Tentative evidence. A hunter has found evidence, real or imagined, of my sins. Hunters with evidence of occult activity become more dangerous. Evidence may survive the death of the hunter who created it. I'm a determined and distinctive tongue, but I have the measure of it. I'd love it if I had a chance to learn that stuff on my own. Even if I knew it before and forgot it, it's a lot more interesting to just make your own mistakes and see how things go. Alright, let's start translating the books. We can always read them later. The summoning is struggling against my control. I could use reason to dismiss it safely, which is always reliable. I could try to reassert control with passion, which is not always reliable. Or I could let what will happen, happen. The stream is good because you know quite a bit about the game, so it's fun to watch someone who knows what they're doing. Oh, so I've really disappointed you then, Duxel. Thank you for the comment on the voice. But yeah, I mean, I think it's not always so. For what it's worth, if I do a game totally blind for the first time, and I have done this and I will do this again, but it's usually a rare occasion. I feel like I really need to work to bring the entertainment when I'm playing something like entirely new for the very first time, without any kind of like preview or something like that. If it's something I feel like I know very well, like say an XCOM or something like that, then it's just simply giving voice to the strategies that I'm employing. Because of course, you know, there's never going to be a perfect playthrough of any of these games, unless you think like a speedrun or something like that. But that's not quite not my tempo, as Johnny's fond of saying now. Speaking of which, I do need to do my batch of shout-outs, but But yeah, so there's the things that I have a certain degree of confidence with, and I can sort of talk about roughly where I'm going with these ideas. Obviously, Cultist Simulator prompts a lot of discussion, either from the ideas behind the game, or sometimes just stuff comes up inside of chat, and we get an opportunity to discuss those. So in that sense, I feel like I'm on somewhat good ground. But I'm also, one of the things that excites me the most are opportunities to play games where I don't know exactly what to do. It's actually why I do enjoy blind playthroughs of things where I feel... So actually, here's a great example. Like Wolfenstein 2, The New Colossus. Twitch says I'm playing... That is absurd. Because because of... Oh, for heaven's sake. So I deliberately checked it, and I double-checked it, and it told me Cultist Simulator. I don't suppose anybody saw what the game was at the very beginning. Do they? You got an alert for Cultist. Okay, good. So this is definitely a Twitch screw-up. Yeah, I just hit the update button and it still hasn't changed it, so... Oh, hey, they brought the hosting screen back. That's excellent. Let me take a quick second here and say thank... This won't be the formal shoutouts, but I haven't had a chance to do this for a while. We've got Yorkshire Bastard, Flowfi, The Eyes of Sin 92, Nubisaur, Unknown Brigade... Ah, damn it, it rearranged it, so... Starbright Knight, Mingo Duck, Johnny Big Time, The Eyes of Sin 92, Flofi, Nubisaur 42, Yorkshire Bastard, Inferno Fowler, Unknown Brigade, and Custom Games, all hosting. Alright. Thank you for those. Okay, so I've just tried to change the... I've tried to change the update it 3 times. Still says Battlefield 5. This is going to be really inconvenient because it... I don't know what Twitch's problem is, but that's kind of annoying. Anyways, we'll deal with that problem when it comes up, because I'm gonna have to adjust it again. It's pretty easy to change the VODs and stuff like that, but I know Twitch gets really ornery about properly labeling stuff, and I can sort of understand it, but this is very much a case of like, you know, being born sick and commanded to be well. Like, if they're not actually gonna let you label your stuff properly, I don't know how they can enforce that. Anyways, many of the dead enter the Mantis through the White Door. They wander its corridors in silence until they are lost. Some embrace each other, some devour each other. Some force their way into the dreams of the living. A few record their memories on the Mantis stone where it is soft. They scratch it with their nails, you see. Last night, I read one of those memories. Furtive truth, a detail smuggled in from an adjacent narrative. Don't speak speak this where you may be overheard. Exploring with this scrap of knowledge may uncover secret locations in the Shires. Oops. I gotta go dancing, otherwise they're gonna fire me. And I was gonna use reason. So the whole reason I summoned the hint of... Well, no, you know what? Contend for mastery. The things from outside the world have many weapons, knives and riddles, fire and despair. I have weapons of my own. This will usually, but not always work. So one of the things I want to check is, once upon a time, it felt like there was nothing that these things escaping could actually do to my followers. I don't want this to escape, but if it does escape, I'm actually kind of interested to see if that's fixed or at least changed. So... Great, thank you both for letting me know about the updates. That actually took more than 8 switches, or like hits of the button. But as long as it's registering, I can make an attempt. So, Forgotten Mithraeum. Curiosity seekers have picked over this ancient temple, but there may be a hidden door here somewhere, which obviously tells me I need to be upgrading my knock. Okay, back to dreaming. And as far as exploration, let's just keep unveiling the occult secrets. Just a quick reminder, we will be, in 2 hours, we'll be switching games. So, what's the riddle this time? The riddle is, what must open before this way opens? Oop, the wrong kind of attention. The city is rife with journalists, detectives, and other meddlers. How long will they leave me in peace? All right. Sylvia, a word, please. Hoodwink, my disciple, can probably use their talents to part fools from their treasures. Nope, okay, so it wasn't Moth. That'll probably get me some notoriety for my trouble. Oh, actually, no, I need to put the evidence on it. That's my bad. My summoning will obey my wishes, for now. Yes, and they said I was going to dance. I'm very happy I noticed that before too long. The stage awaits hot and clean and bare and bright. If I move the moves and step the steps and do what is required, they'll pay me. Vitality, more knowledge. I prepared the text for study. And we might as well just keep reading the... might as well keep translating before we move on. Ah, I screwed up. Okay, Mystery Man. Even if I'm missing something, number one, chat can't transmit those messages fast enough. Even if I'm letting something expire, even if you totally think I'm playing the game wrong, unless I ask, please don't tell me how to play the game. Like, it is that black and white in this channel. It may be different in other channels, and if you prefer that style, you know, that's fine. That is totally your choice. But enough is enough. Like, failing in this game is as much a part of it as playing it properly. That has been my conviction of the game, and more importantly, it's my own channel. Oh joy, another Intensity of Radiance. Okay, so I've got all sorts of fun ahead of me. So let's think about how I'm going to deal with the situation that I found myself in. So, we've got St. Agnes Hospital. I think probably the best way to work this out. So I got 300 seconds, well, close to 300 seconds for the contract at the Gaiety. I didn't think they found further notoriety. We'll see if this thing upgrades, but one way or the other, I'll get my Moth follower back. There's a side of me that kind of wants to just paint with the Intensity of Radiance, because at least then I'll get some money. Okay, this will seem counterintuitive. I'm actually going to beg for the job back, because I don't have anything better to do with the work slot at the moment. We will go back through the white door, which, again, will potentially bring me negative things. And then for exploration, we'll throw another occult scrap on the pile. So the reasoning behind going for the Gaiety job again is just because I don't have... I mean, I might use the Intensity of Radiance in a ritual again. That's my follow-up position, especially with the Trembling in the Air. And it looks like it's Season of Despair afterwards, so I need to be a little careful in terms of what I do. I'm safe for now. My adversary has not got enough evidence to bring a case against me. They found no new clues. So, the specific way I'm going to handle this one, we'll see what happens with Deceit and Confusion, my followers attempting a profitable deception. It's very likely I'll get notoriety as a result of this. So if that happens, what I'll do is I'll use the notoriety and I'll turn that into additional funding through the through painting. If I can't turn it into something beneficial in that sense, that's fine. I'll just worry about, you know, I'll just get rid of the Intensity of Radiance through other means. But I think that's probably the best way I can work with the things I have right now. All right. The light, the dark, the moth finds light in the dark, and so do I. I did not beg, not quite. So I don't think I'll have enough time to do a dance and also deal with the Intensity of Radiance, so we'll see what comes up after this. We still have enough time for the chat. And then again, in the good news case is one where I'm able to turn some notoriety into some cash. The bad news case is one where I just need to use it in a ritual, and if I get another hint, I get another hint. You know, it's not the worst thing that can happen to me, but we'll see if we can turn this into something a little more profitable. The true and complete accounting of the Asclepian mysteries of the roots of the house has now been translated. Alright, so let's just jump straight into Gildersleeves. Right, I was beginning to worry that my follower had arranged their own disappearance, but it seems that their deception was detected. The victim was outraged, and my follower barely escaped alive. Heal a fallen follower with talk. This one has suffered in my service. Wounded followers don't count as followers and can't be used as agents or assistants. They may die in the season of sickness. Use talk to treat them. Okay, so that's the first wound that I've got to experience as well. So we'll get that taken care of right away. Compassion or convenience? And looks like I need... Ah, so I can't use vitality. I guess it makes sense. My own vitality can't heal a follower. And so I did gain the notoriety. And what we will do with that is my fevered imagination. Oops. Obviously, this will get the attention of the detective, but that's cool. The DLC adds real downsides to your calls. I mean, it's better than the alternative, which was to see them like you just straight up lose them. So, pulsing airs, a rising power, a reassuring energy, a sixth order influence, significant resonances or correspondences. This can be used in some rites to summon minions. So I think I might be able to get a percussagant out of this, but I don't think I have enough of the other. I don't think I have enough of the other materials, but we will see. Okay, so Glimmering. Again, I won't have too much use for it, but it's better than some of the alternatives. Strathcoin's Resonance. The House of Mr. Strathcoin, a collector of rare objects. Strathcoin will not sell his treasures, but a sufficiently cunning accomplice might gain entry. So let's also start turning these furtive truths into locations. I'm definitely not going to go to them yet, but it doesn't hurt to at least have the prep work done. That is correct, and it's a little harder to do the special sound that we do when we make percussagants because I don't have a proper working scroll wheel, but I'll do my best. The colors of the night. I could spend money on better paints, or perhaps I could find more exotic pigments. Don't see much of a point in using those. I keep forgetting that fleeting remembrances can be used in to deal with some of the negative cards that show up. Let's see what happens here. Finished. Exceptional work. This is something special. It may provoke a reaction. My recent work has drawn some attention. Something should sell. So I've gained some contentment. Good news. Glimmering. Also good news. Ooh, further contentment. Further glimmering. Obviously you can't come up with another masterpiece quite that quickly. Actually, that wasn't that much money. It would have been more convenient to work at the Gaiety. Thank you very much, Benoit. I really appreciate that. So actually one of the reasons, so there were two reasons why, oh damn it, I shouldn't have gone to the Gaiety, because now this is going to turn into Fascination. I wasn't thinking. There are two reasons why I started streaming well, there's three. I mean, I like playing strategy games. The doors of the Palace of Memory are opened. Latin. A dead language, dead as diamonds. Some books must be translated before they can be read. So one of the reasons why I did strategy was because I am interested in the game. And it was also the thing that I could stream reliably on my laptop. But another thing... I had some restlessness, didn't I? No, I had the possibility of restlessness. I didn't actually have the item itself. So what if I take the Ardent Orison? No, that won't work. Just trying to think if there's a way I can be clever about this. Ooh, upgrade influences. Yeah, it's too much. Oh well, I will take my lumps. Unless a conversation can help me. But yeah, so part of it was a technological constraint, but I was also a little conscious in terms of the responses to the sound of my voice. So strategy or games like this, which have a lot of reading, are an advantage in my opinion, because I'm able to... So like nobody's gonna miss me being on the screen. Oh yeah, I never actually finished the example of like games that I understand well. So, you know, I like playing games like Wolfenstein, and I will play games like Wolfenstein on stream, but I don't have as much to talk about on that one because obviously the game has got its own soundscape. Whereas a game like Cultist Simulator is very heavily focused on text. It's also very heavily focused on ideas, so we get chances to talk about things that maybe wouldn't necessarily come up in other games. And so I think, you know, obviously I'm not a runaway success as a streamer, but I have enough to kind of be able to reliably get some number of people inside the chat who are going to be participating. And so I think as a sort of as a result of that, I kind of gravitate towards games like this because I just think they fit whatever niche I've sort of made for myself. So Elapathy's disquisitions on fire and the unburnt god are interrupted by passages of distractingly erotic poetry addressed to Baldemera. Does this game have a good or high amount of challenge, and do you think the replayability is good? So, Benoit, I will say that, so the Stagdoor's riddle changes every once in a while. The main reason why you want to replay the game is not necessarily to... I think you may have asked this earlier as well, so hopefully I'll be consistent in terms of the answers that I give you. The wound is healed, the scar remains, but each scar, as the scholar Shulga once observed, is a lesson. Faustus, I think hell's a fable. Mephistopheles, I think so still, till experience change thy mind. 3 scars of the same type will kill a mortal. So I think one of the things that gets you playing this game over and over again is not that the path to the final ascension is different all the time. There are some differences. So for instance, a forge, so like the forge cult is going to behave differently from the temple in Ceasing, for instance. This is the heart cult. And the enlightenment victory is going to be different than the sensation victory in terms of things that you give up. So there's minor differences, and then there's things like the Stag Doors riddle, which are drawn from sort of a distribution of questions rather than always being the same. But I'd say that once you know how to do one ascension, you're going to have a pretty good idea about how to do the other ascensions. The exception would be the new change ascension, which does introduce some new mechanics, such as the guise of the Viper at the moment. So the main reason you will want to replay this game is it's very rare for you to see everything that's on offer in one playthrough. You can be sort of obsessive like me and wind up doing lots of things and hoarding a bunch of books and a bunch of lore and such. But generally you're going to want to make some progress, and you wind up making progress by, I don't know, picking these. I am a little tempted to talk to the weary detective and just using the intensity of radiance on him. But yeah, so the replayability is less. So I'll put it to you this way: like if you think of a game like XCOM, the replayability of XCOM is that there's enough sort of, I mean, especially in XCOM 2, there's procedural generation, but there's enough diversity in the encounters, and the rules are set up a little bit like chess, where in theory, yes, two independent chess games could actually wind up being identical, and maybe in the history of the game, two people really have played the exact same game. But in reality, you know, the individual characteristics of a given game, just because of the way one of the players is feeling, or, you know, for whatever reason, tends to be different. The differences in Cultist Simulator are a little bit more focused on the things that happen inside your head, and this is true throughout the game. You know, there's a whole set of implications on this character and kind of who they are, how they've gotten to this particular place, things that happened to them before the game. All of these are sort of hinted at in terms of the details on the cards. And the cards don't reveal everything. In fact, there's a whole other secret game behind Cultist Simulator that's going on. And there's little hints actually inside the game that will indicate where this secret game is. So you can even sort of say, like, you know, learning is the original roguelike. You know, you go to school and you have to learn some facts, or sometimes you make some mistakes and you develop from them. But however you like to think about it, the replayability is more the fact that there is a whole other world just below the surface of this game. And if you're inclined towards that kind of investigation, then this game has a tremendous amount of replayability. To give you an idea, my Steam time in this game alone is 137 hours. But I will also be very clear that this game isn't necessarily for everyone. I'd say if you're sufficiently interested now, and I know you've been here a couple of times before, it's probably worth picking up so you can try it within the 2 hours. I don't know of anybody who has played the game for 2 hours and is on the fence about whether or not they enjoy it. And nobody's feelings are going to be hurt if you decide that it's not for you and you want to return it. But for my own part, I think this is a very special game, and I enjoy it tremendously. All right, significant conversation. Oh, and Duxil, so far as I can tell, I do not think new headquarters are implemented in the game, but I will admit that I did not do a lot of reading on the Dancer DLC ahead of time, and I also know the Gate of Horn branch is the real indicator in terms of where the game is going. So, as a roguelike junkie for years and years, so much to learn about a game to improve your play, permadeath, yeah. And like, I think the difference about Cultist Simulator is that where a roguelike will usually give you different items to make the game manageable over time. So like if you play Risk of Rain, if you die a certain number of times, you unlock an item that makes you stronger. If you do certain things inside the game, you get different items that will usually make it'll let you achieve more. In the case of Cultist Simulator, it's not like that. There are different legacies, and usually the legacies sort of feed into problems that you had before. So for instance, as the aspirant, it's likely that you will die because of starvation, in terms of just being, maybe not being able to to manage your resources well enough. And so it's very likely that the next playthrough you'll do is the Bright Young Thing, which has got a surplus of resources, but maybe a little bit less ability in terms of getting occult lore. But then the whole point of that one is that because you've had an aspirant playthrough, you kind of know how to get that lore. It's more challenging, but then that's why we play games. At least in my own case, I don't play games because I want them to be a pushover. I usually like it when things mess up, and I try and think of the best way to go through. So I'll admit, I have a little, I kind of like it when I make mistakes like this. I know I'm going to get an intensity of radiance turn into fascination. There's nothing that's going to become free in time, and I don't think there's a way that I can talk my way out of the intensity of radiance. So now I need to say, well, how am I going to deal with this? I already know how I'm going to. It's not the end of the world, but sometimes when things don't turn out the way you want, even just because you fat-fingered a button, it still becomes interesting. And so in this case, I would say the roguelike element of Cultist Simulator is unique simply because it gives you more opportunities to try different things. And the longer you spend with this game, the more you think about some of its ideas and the more fun it becomes. So, significant conversations in a smoky meeting room. What do I need from my follower? Well, this time I need to do what I actually wanted to. So, send a devious minion to destroy evidence. My scheme will most likely succeed. There is always a chance that something will go awry. And of course, Benoit, if you ever have any questions, as I'm fond of reminding people, I always... Oh, excellent. Okay, so it's a consciousness radiance. Oddly enough, that means I'll be able to upgrade it. Let's go to the Lodge of the Sage Knight this time. Damn it! Well, it gets better than getting an intensity of radiance, I suppose. Favor from an authority. I've learned something that will earn me a favor, once only. Last night, I dreamt of Blue Silk Pavilion overlooking the cloudy labyrinth of the Bounds. I listened to the mistress of this place speak of other visitors. The Suppression Bureau come here. Did you know that? I think they hope to recruit me as an ally. She snorts derisively. After what they tried to do to Christopher. But their folly is your fortune. I'll tell you something that may help you if the Suppression Bureau, if the Suppression Bureau ever troubles you. So that'll be helpful if things go pear-shaped as far as the evidence is concerned. All right, Crocus Hill. Oops. Just thinking for a moment. Let's go back through the white door. Obviously, I can also be studying the existing lore, but I figure I might as well read the books that I have already before I go too far with any of this. All right, so I've got some vitality. My own heart pumps more strongly today. I could combine this if I wanted, but, well, not now, but I've lost my hint. And the trembling hairs will go away in a minute as well. Tonight I sense opportunity. Tonight I could attract attention if I cease to hold back, if I commit more fully. I am more than a lissome package of flesh and blood. Today they'll notice that. So all their eyes are upon me. Afterwards I received a gift from an admirer. A little too personal for me to feel comfortable, but I can sell it on the second-hand market. So these are particularly helpful because you'll notice that my total financing has actually been going down over time, but it's not the worst thing. You know what? I am gonna do a quick attempt with the. I don't think I have enough lore. I don't think I have enough of the right kind of lore. If I add winter, summon one of the dead, and if you add edge, something irrepressible. Yeah. So the only edge that I have is here, but I will need significant intensity of heart. So previously I might have been able to do that, but I was a little too slow on the draw. yes, I still need to do something with the dance. So let's go back to the gaiety. I don't see much of a reason for me to try anything else at the moment. So let's continue to dance. Thank you for streaming. Gonna catch Sunset and Walk. Excellent. I hope you have a good one, Benoit. As always, I'll also say, if you're on the fence about the game, definitely feel free to check out some of the VODs, either on this channel or on the YouTube channel. That should hopefully give you a good idea about whether or not the game is for you. And as always, you can pick it up. If you buy it on Steam, at least you should be able to return it within 2 hours. Not that I encourage you to, return it. I hope you buy it and love it. But you'll definitely have some options available for you. And if you're still on the fence, definitely feel free to stop by, and I'll do my best to slowly break down your resistance and turn you into a raving fan of this game. Alright, to reach the stag door, I believe that all you really need is to want something enough. But I never wanted anything that much, except of course Baldamera, and I'm very much afraid that the knot in this story is this. What Baldamera wants is the stag door. But here's something I learned in Persia. Perhaps it'll teach you what you want. Alright, in 5 continents, smiths have whispered the same words to the iron. Murderers have been known to whisper these words too, and to adepts, of course. These words are spoken in a ritual to inspire unmerciful change. An unmerciful change. Let us read a true and complete accounting of the Asclepian mysteries of the roots of the house. Descriptions of the Asclepian mysteries reproduced by one Riley Gress from, supposedly, a much older text. It's unlikely to be genuine, but it makes reference to the house without walls and its wood right there in the prologue. This is very obviously not an antique text. At the very least, it has been badly mutilated, but it contains substantial intriguing material, especially a persuasive comparison of the house without walls, without doors, to the human body with its many portals. Okay. So after the dream, I'll deal with the fascination. Let's grab another furtive truth because I need to round out my explorations. In fact, I probably should be grabbing some more of the occult secrets anyway, because I've not got everything from the capital. At least I don't think I have. Maybe I'm wrong, but there should be at least one more location. Many of the dead enter the mantis through the white door. They wander the corridors in silence until they are lost. Some embrace each other and some devour each other. Some force their way into the dreams of the living. A few record their memories on the mantis stone where it is soft. They scratch it with their nails, you see. Last night, I read one of those memories. Actually, I think I'm going to do that right now. That's going to mean that I have to give up some passion, but I think I can afford that. So, and I believe in this case I can use a fleeting remembrance now to deal with fascination, which, as a battle-hardened Cultist Simulator veteran, I can definitely say that this one feels like a bit of a... It kind of feels like it's a bit too kind, but this is very much the problem that I know they ran into with Sunless Sea, which was they listened to... Like, the people who were giving them feedback were people very familiar with the game, and I will be the first to say I didn't like Sunless Sea very much when I first played it. It actually took me forcing myself to say, it's like, many friends who've got great tastes in games and know exactly what I like have recommended this game to me, and I don't get why. So clearly I have missed something here. Now, I don't know how they got into it, but once I pushed myself past that point, once I sort of said, it's like, there's got to be something I'm missing here. And sure enough, once I got deeper into the game, I really enjoyed it. And so this is a great example of where my opinions about Cultist Simulator are not necessarily... Like, so this is one of the reasons why I'm always a little careful whenever I give feedback, because if I don't recognize the fact that my perspective comes from somebody who's played the game for 137 hours, I'm going to make recommendations that are consistent with the enjoyment of somebody who has put a ridiculous amount of time into the game. And that doesn't necessarily mean that, if... Let's just assume that I had some mind control device over Weather Factory. those kinds of recommendations are not necessarily going to produce a game that somebody who has all of 10 minutes experience with Cultist Simulator will enjoy. So I think this is one of these cases where I need to sort of think and actually take advantage of it a little bit more. I don't necessarily mind that you have a longer winding path to unravel some of the problems with things like Fascination, but then it has also occurred to me that I think my highest number of deaths have been to Fascination, so it could be that the lightening of the Fascination loss is just a reflection of the number of times that people are dying to that particular malady. And we've got Casual Nothing. It's Wednesday, Cultist time. I was just playing some yourself today. Finished up a very long playthrough with a victory. Very glad to hear that. What did you wind up winning as Casual Nothing? I should warn you that we were actually getting ready to play a totally different game, and I completely misread when that game was released. So we're going to be playing for about another hour and a half, I think. I might end a little bit early just so I can get a small break in, because that will mean a fairly long broadcast for me. If you guys can stay up till that time, I definitely recommend seeing this other thing, because I've got some notes that I wrote about 2 years ago that I'll finally be able to cover. And I hope you guys enjoy that. But obviously it's going to be a little bit off of my normal time, so I'll understand if you can't hang out as well. And we have got the lovely Melemony in chat. How are you doing? It's great to see you. I'm not playing Crusader Kings, so you don't need to worry about offensive things being said tonight. This place merits closer investigation. Lockwood Fen. The reeking murk of the Fenlands is ripe with furtive life. Taciturn locals still watch the sacred places of the small and secret gods, the ones that answer prayers. Alright, let's upgrade Leo. And the reason I want to do that is because I want to deal with this notoriety. I can obviously use it for painting and such, but it is a little bit of a liability, and so it'd be nice if I had a slightly more reliable means of getting rid of that. My follower will kneel as a novice and rise as an initiate. I will administer the necessary oaths myself. By the way, while I'm at it, in order... Oop. I never got a chance to read this whole thing. If I have a particular friend, now is the time to renew our connection. Grabs a card to fill its void. Well, I know these two aren't interested anymore. But I'm slightly curious about the notoriety thing. Anyway, we have Johnny Big Time, who first came in. Johnny does not play Cultist Simulator, but he is a bundle of energy, he is a quick wit, and he is a heck of an entertainer. He's always got something to say, it's always very funny. He has just put a lot of effort into his whole stream layout in terms of special screens and different, windows and transitions and such. I will admit I was actually quite jealous when I saw that. I think it looks very sharp. He's already had a very high quality cast, but those extra touches that he's done have really just pushed it up to another level. I don't think I'll ever have something as nice as that, but he's definitely more than just the good looks. He's somebody who I really think communicates just this boundless enthusiasm for games and all kinds of games. He's probably done my favorite XCOM playthrough. He's done Battlefield. He's done Fortnite. He's actually the only person I've been able to watch Fortnite and not want to, bang my head against the desk. I think the other thing that I like too is that he's been really open-minded in terms of the types of games that he's played. So he hasn't been too he was not necessarily enthusiastic about Battlefield when he started the game. He definitely had his reservations, but after playing it a little bit, he said that he's enjoyed it quite a bit. he played Chaos Reborn with me, which is maybe hopefully something that we'll get a chance to return to. And I think another example of this would be is we've played some Divinity Original Sin together, and I don't know, I mean, we made an effort to try and turn it into a regular series, and for some reason, I don't know if I was feeling a little bit of pressure in terms of doing the recording or something like that. I found the game very enjoyable to play with Johnny. There were a couple of screw-ups that I made in terms of just, like, getting blocked by the game, which I think just drug things down a bit. So I don't really think it'll be something that, I don't know, I'll leave it to your guys' taste as to whether or not that's something that you'd want to see. But I can actually say, even when the game was not necessarily the most fun that it had been, I think our first session we had a lot of enjoyment out of. The second one was okay, and then like the third and fourth one sort of were a little lumpy at places. The third one I think was pretty bad. The fourth one was like good in some spots, not good in the others. I think it's a very good game, but one thing I can definitely say about Johnny is that he was a trooper through that. So even if the game wasn't fun, or maybe just I wasn't fun, like, he put up with me bugging him about playing it again and was willing to go on. And at least in my case, that's actually a very rare trait. I tend to find it very difficult to find people to play games with. And Johnny is a delightful exception and an open-minded exception. Because it's one thing for me to play games with other people, but it's also one thing for me to be able to play the games that I like with people. The only other person I can really say that about would be K5 and Melemony. And then I've played Scrabble with the Eyes of Sin. So a lot of those are different reasons for Johnny. And again, I think out of everyone, if I were to take a representative of gaming, or of streaming, if I were to try and explain to someone, you know, it's common for people to talk about Twitch is like, why in the world would people watch someone play a game? Why wouldn't you just play the game? Johnny would be the person that I would use. In fact, I'd even probably do it for gaming on its own. It's like, why do people waste their time with video games like this? If I wanted to go for, you know, the literary argument or something like that, I'd show them Cultist Simulator. But if I want to show them, you know, the level of enjoyment that you can get out of that experience, honestly, I think Johnny would be the first person I show them, because I think Johnny really does communicate through his broadcast, whether it's his body language, whether it's his smack talk, or whether it's just how enjoyable it is to hang out and just, you know, interact with him. I think he really does a great job of showing why this is a pastime that people are willing to put the time and attention and even the money into. And so I always have a good time hanging out with him and his chat. And if you are interested in checking him out, some of the things he's doing at the moment are Battlefield 5. He is doing, The Witcher. And I think he might be doing some WWE in the future as well, but I'm sure he'll be able to let you know if he's covering some of the other details. Not to be outdone, the Eyes of Sin is probably still doing her chores. Come on, the EYs of... I hope I got that right. Let me... Yep, that's the right one. The Eyes of Sin hosted me a little bit earlier. She's a very lovely person, somebody who mods a lot more than broadcasts, but she has broadcasted, and I always like to say, if you do have your alerts turned on, it's not just that follows are free. I think that's, you know, you can always follow up. Followers are free with, and you get what you pay for. It's not because it's free that you should follow her. It's because she's a lot of fun to watch, and she's actually very similar to how I started off casting, which is to be on a less than ideal computer for broadcasting, for playing high-end games. And she's done a great job of it. She's played some mobile games that I enjoyed tremendously. Super Brothers Sword and Sorcery, which is actually a Canadian mobile game. I highly recommend it if you haven't tried it out. She's done Pokemon. She's done quite a bit. And again, whether you like her as a mod for streams or whether you just want to see her stuff on her own, she's actually she's a very nice person. I think she's sometimes quite hard on herself in terms of the quality of her broadcast or her character, but she really is somebody I think is worth checking out. Oh my goodness, I don't know if I'm going to be able to pronounce this correctly. Matsumuri Gaming? Matsumuri Gaming. Thank you very much for that follow. Yeah, Sin really is a very kind, a very thoughtful individual, and somebody who I think has made a lot of channels better for her presence, and it's not necessarily obvious that she was the reason for that. It's one of the reasons why I wish that she wasn't so hard on herself sometimes, because I think it's very easy to undervalue your own accomplishments, and as a result to feel very discouraged about what you've done or what you've contributed. And so every once in a while when I do these shout outs, it's an opportunity to remind her that she does actually make things better for people, and that she does bring a lot to broadcasts. And whether you enjoy her as somebody who's sort of a force multiplier in the channels that she mods for or participates in, or whether you enjoy her as a broadcaster in her own right when she returns, or you just enjoy her for these fine emotes, which I'll be putting in chat in a second. She's definitely somebody who's contributed a lot to making Twitch a better place. And thank you. I'm going to call you, abbreviate it to Matt for that so that I can take the compliment and run. But I appreciate that. Thank you very much for your follow. And then finally, not to be outdone, we've got Melemony. Melemony has the dubious distinction of being able to play Stellaris with me in multiplayer. I apologize about the Protectorate thing. I did not know that it would ruin your fun for the game. But Melemony is somebody who originally came along with K5 on his raid from Surviving Mars. And so I was definitely remembering that. I was remembering a K5 and Melemony when I was doing that rather unexpected 7-hour Surviving Mars stream. And definitely another streamer who is... it's not just worthy of your attention, but actually is a member of a community and a member of basically somebody who... Again, if you want to hang out in a place where you feel very welcome, where it's very open-minded, where you have lots of opportunities for just interesting people with maybe even different perspectives, but ones that are, you know, closely held or well thought out. She's another broadcaster and a moderator, actually, as well, who I think brings something unique to Twitch and is worth checking out. Jeff DeHeff. So I messed up on my timing, so the special cast doesn't happen for another hour and a half. I know that you have an active work life, so I don't know if that will be too late for you, but I hope you get a chance to see it, because I do have some magic in mind. But unfortunately, so I thought the thing was released at 11:30 a.m. and it is in fact 11:30 p.m. and so I wasted a whole bunch of time. So I don't know how much you enjoy Cultist Simulator, but if you want, you can come back a little bit after 11:30. I'm probably going to shut off the cast and have a small break before I set it up. I will be able to... I'll hopefully be able to entertain you. If not, there'll still be a VOD of it, but I can... Maybe the best thing you can do, if you don't think you'll be able to be around for it, you can send me a DM on Discord and I'll tell you exactly what's coming up. Or I can just send you the link. Anyway, all the advertising out of the way. By the way, Jeff DeHeff is responsible for some of the magic special like screen events that have happened during streams where I don't know, I do a special effect of some kind. He's the mastermind behind all of those. So and actually, as somebody, so there's a Jeff gave me a RuneScape problem, and it was an interesting one. So he was basically wondering about a certain drop rate and what it's like to... Like basically you're a player, you're trying to do something with a certain probability, and you've done the event so many times, and we were talking about that. He actually has a better intuitive understanding of probability concepts than I do. I actually need to sit down with the definitions and work them out. But what was really fun about that problem was I wrote up an algorithm to basically simulate a bunch of players. I've got a 10 million player version of that took hours to run. For him. But what was neat was I took that algorithm and I actually implemented it in a few different languages. So I originally did it in R, and then I did a version in MATLAB. And then at work, there's a bunch of people who are just going absolutely nuts about R. Yeah, I went crazy with it. I've got the results. That was the thing that I was going to show you on a video chat the other day. So when you have some spare time, we can we can chat. But yeah, so everybody's sort of found religion. So for those of you who are computer savvy, some of you, this will not be totally unrelated to Cultist Simulator. So apologies for those of you who don't like these digressions, by the way. I'll try and keep it as brief as I can. But for some of you, I figure gamers are usually a pretty tech savvy lot. So I think most people kind of know that guy who really likes open source stuff, and like they always spread especially when somebody like first discovers open source, and they'll just like go on forever about how it's going to change the world and how it's the best way of doing everything. And then, you know, maybe because they won't shut up about it, you install Linux and you realize what a complete pain it is to like use. So then you just uninstall it and you go back to Windows because nobody ever got fired for using a Microsoft product. And by the way, as much as I like to complain about Windows stuff, like Windows 10 is not that bad. I'm a little annoyed that it reset itself and I wasn't able to do all those updates, and that's why I'm like late on the cast and all of that. But in general, like Windows, you know, it's like EA. There are reasons why people don't like Windows and think it's bad, and those reasons were completely legitimate back in the day. Windows 10 is not nearly as bad as what it, you know, as what the Microsoft reputation is. My opinion, maybe you guys have had a worse experience with Windows 10 than I have, but, you know, credit where credit is due. Like, it is not as terrible as other iterations of the Windows operating system. It's the least drunk driver on the road, maybe we can say. So anyway, but yeah, so, you know, as soon as somebody discovers open source, you know, they start drinking the Kool-Aid and they become intolerable. I always like saying that Android users were put on this earth to remind Apple users how annoying they were in like the 2000s. So anyways, this is a little bit of a problem because I actually work in an environment where SAS is the standard. And a lot of people like to talk about how old and out of date SAS is, and I'm going to suggest that those people are just unfamiliar with SAS. It is actually a very powerful statistical program. And so the problem is there are people who have been there for a very long time who have found religion in terms of R and are busy talking about how much better it is. Well, you know, it's funny, Jeff, to have, so they're not sassy, but I have, because I'm like the guy who always puts cold water on the R fandom, I've decided to call myself the sasshole. But yeah, sassy works too. Sassy's probably a little bit more PG. But yeah, so anyways, because Jeff had given me, like, I made this algorithm, and I'd already made it in MATLAB. I thought, I was like, oh, this will be a neat thing to give it a shot. I said, well, why don't I try this in SAS as well? Because if R is so much better, then, you know, presumably we should be seeing some kind of performance improvements. And I also did a version in Python. So I made what's called the Thunderdome. You know, I just set up my computer and I did a run for 10 million observations in R. I did 10 million observations in MATLAB, did 10 million observations in SAS. And now there's a few, basically I tried to make the conditions the same as much as I could, but basically I think the end results were the R one took 17 hours to run. The SAS one was comparable to MATLAB at 100,000 agents, but at 10 million agents, it actually took a while. So that one took 11 hours to run. And then I ran it in MATLAB, and I couldn't believe it. It ran in 3 hours. I thought I made a mistake, and then I took a look at the histogram, and I'm like, nope, that's 10 million. So yeah, this is the funny thing. Like, Jeff gave me just this throwaway problem of like what it's like to play RuneScape. And, well, I mean, if I told you, yeah, I made this algorithm that runs in 3 hours, I think you'd be pretty annoyed. But yeah, compared to the fact that like the first thing that I wrote it in took 17 hours to run, yeah, it did okay. But yeah, so Jeff gave me this throwaway problem where I was like, you know what, I can write a little app that'll do this thing. And it wound up being this fun little, it's not exactly a benchmark, but it was a fun little example where I was like, okay, let's see whether or not these, you know, let's see if the Church of R has, is able to back up its claims. By the way, if you are interested in these products, this is not a good argument against R. The reason you want to use R is, one, it's free. Two, you want to explore your data. You don't necessarily care about performance. So you just want something where you can go into a console, you can perform a few transformations to your data, and take a look at some results. It's designed to do that. They did not design it with performance in mind. If you want performance in mind, you really need to use something like MATLAB. But this is the thing, is that we've gone from the right tool for the right job to all of a sudden R is just this magic trick that's going to make all statistical inference perfect. And I don't know, my own little view of this is that if you have an uninteresting project, then you talk about your software a lot. And if you have an interesting project, you talk about that project. So anyways, that's Jeff. He doesn't stream, but he gave me an interesting project to work on this weekend. So he gets credit for that. And I invited him to a special stream that is not going to be happening for an hour and 15 minutes. So, oh, right, you work out at like 10. Well, that's fine, because I'm going to need to go through. It's something that's going to happen a little bit later in the broadcast. So if you get a chance to see it, hopefully it will be done by the time you're done at the gym. Or it'll be ready by the time you're done at the gym. You can put it on the big screen, because I know your screen is like 100 miles long, and it'll be exciting. All right. The direction of death is down, the book explains. The peacock door has been considered a rent or an abrasion, but in some respects is more like a mouth, if not more like a treasured point of entry. Discussions of the doors include a rite which may conjure creatures through those doors, although the key incantations are missing. Words that walk. The syllables of this formula are compelling. I find myself snapping my fingers to its rhythm. It desires not to cease. I really think that, again, I'm a Lantern follower forever, but I do think some of the heart writing is some of my favorite. Maybe it's just my background I was in a jazz band, so. All right, the rite of the map's edge. The vagabond is the only hour that never enters the mansis. This rite must be performed in the right place, in the right time, and the vagabond will take that rightness for her own. Let us read on what is contained by Silver. A dire bestiary of the horrors to be found in mirrors. This is a recent edition of a third century text by Pomander. That's actually a dumb thing for me to do. What I should be trying to do is upgrade my lore. Well, if I'm going to upgrade anything, it should be the winter lore. I think I'm just going to read the books. I have a bunch of these things which are expiring soon, so I really should be using them for study, but it's probably a little too late to take advantage of all the glivering and the upgrades that I'm doing. I don't have anything that'll take it to the third level, or technically the 6th level. I don't know. I figure getting the actual lore is probably a little bit better for me at the moment, so. All right, talk to you later, Jeff. Thanks for stopping by. And if you get a chance to come back, I'd love to have you here. Oh, actually, if you check your Snapchat, you get to see the results of that horse race. You might be gone already. We seat our mouths to be thunder. We seat our feet to be dance. We seat our skins to be night. We do not cease. We do not cease. We do not cease. Okay, so with that in mind, let's get Leo to do... So I don't think you can take the notoriety on its own. I think you take the temple unceasing. Cult business charm. Not everyone is sympathetic to our aims, but if we have problems with our reputation, a disciple can probably smooth them over. All right, so we've got Keegland's Scratch. Here the Romans dug for silver until they reached the unsanctioned place where the names hid things not fit for sunlight. Many others have come since then, even as the tunnels crumble. Some never left. Okay, so let's... I think we'll just take a Forgotten Chronicle and we'll throw that in. And in this case, I'm going to go back to the woods, and this is just so that we can get some occult scraps. So we will use Passion on the path. Now I pass between the scarbark trees, the moon passes behind the branches, though her fingers remain in my hair. I'm stumbling over roots now. It is tempting to drop to all fours to avoid the low branches. Pale wings move deep in the night. So I've gotten sick, but the good news is that I have enough vitality, and I've got a Course of the Heart, so I'll have even more. In fact, I might consider taking the study and start combining some of this vitality, but I think it takes 4 for me to get another level. Yeah, so I'm not entirely sure it's really worth it, but if I were to try it, now would be a good time, because I happen to be awash in vitality. Now, I don't think there's anything for me to do work-wise at the moment. I should probably be turning in these commissions, to be completely honest, but as it happens, I'll just throw the heart in. I think I might be able to make a little bit more money by dancing at the Igdisis Club, but it's just kind of nice to keep the gaiety going, and I've been able to sort of tread water as far as the finances are concerned, at least until I start going on for some more as I go. Basically, I've been able to pay for things until I get the explorations done. All right, hello Seti, how are you doing? And the Eyes of Sin, I am out of my work call. You feel bad for Mr. Weary Detective. Wait a minute. 1, why do you feel bad for the Weary Detective? And 2, out of your work call? Does that mean you're done your chores, or you're currently out on a job? Because if you're out on a job, that's wonderful news. This gentleman would rather be left alone with his pipe and his illustrated London news. But no, apparently some conjurer of abominations has to be hunted down like a mad dog, and apparently nobody else can find the time. I'm sure this has been asked already, but have you considered playing some Slay the Spire? It looks like an amazing... you were just looking at an amazing mod for it, and you loved that game. So I don't have Slay the Spire, which is one of the main reasons I haven't played it. I know there was a discount... I think it was a discount on Slay the Spire if you had Cultist Simulator, or a discount... No, it was a discount on Cultist Simulator if you had Slay the Spire. It's not a game I've personally played. I know Ponce really likes it. I actually haven't even looked at it that much, but I am told that it's very good. One of the troubles that I run into is the fact that there's lots of games that look really good, and I've got a bit of a backlog of keys that I'm trying to go through. But you had a customer to talk to, and you were back from it. Excellent. Welcome back, the Eyes of Sin. I talked about what a wonderful streamer you are a little bit earlier. But yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to trying it. It's just one of these things where it's very easy to get to sort of have it sort of fall under the hooves of all the other games that I have on the list. But it's always nice to get feedback in terms of like, I'd really like to see you play X, because even if I don't play X, it does let me know a certain type of game that people would like to see me play, and I think there's value in that. I can think of a couple of games specifically that result... Like, I wouldn't have touched Surviving Mars, save for the fact that there were a bunch of people who specifically said that they would like to see me play a... They'd specifically like to see me play a city builder. So, Fortnite? You want to see me play Fortnite, Melemony? I've played it once. By the way, you'll be pleased with me, the Eyes of Sin. I did not. I had an opportunity to kill the Weary Detective, and I did not. So, the virgins maidens of the mirror favor orchids. The behindlings favor the rhododendron. Cut flowers of either nature should not be placed before polished bronze. An appendix contains a rite which might be used to summon some of these entities, although the details of its use are not made clear. A mantis glimpse, a snatch of poetry, a single memory of a certain house that all of us visit at least twice in our lives. For one's first visit to the mantis, this lore is almost essential. Okay, so extra Fortnite is what you're saying here, Melemony. I'm getting mixed signals, but... The rite of the watchman's sorrow. This rite recalls the loss of the watchman who walks from the house that has no walls. Light goes before him and shadow behind. He must not see you. The instrument of power is used to summon him to take his sacrifice. Precious knowledge from the root of your thoughts. The assistant must speak the words that anchor your sanity, so choose someone you trust. Fortnite only? I mean, I might occasionally do the blackout mode in Call of Duty. I feel like you need to have some variety. Fortnite and blackout will be the way that I maintain the status as a variety caster. Lock the study door, the work begins. Here we'll be reading De Bellis Murorum in Latin, an 18th, or we'll not read, but we'll translate, an 18th century epic poem by the pseudonymous Solipstos. By the way, this is one thing I rather like. I think this is, I don't know if this is taken, but this is comparable to the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game in the sense that, like, There's reading a book. So I'm reading a book on the Marshall Plan right now, which I think is super interesting. Actually, yeah, here, 1 second, guys. I'm gonna get some water. I'm also gonna grab the book so that I can give the author credit. I'm also gonna take a quick chance to go to the bathroom. So enjoy this lovely music, and Jeff the Hef isn't here, so he's not gonna be too annoyed by seeing this this symbol. I'll be back in like 45 seconds. All right, thank you for bearing with me there. Oh, wait a minute, one last second. So it's The Marshall Plan by Ben, I don't know if it's Steele or Style, but I think it's a pretty solid book. If you don't know what The Marshall Plan is, George Marshall's an interesting man, and it's a really interesting story, and I'm not going to cover it because there's no possible way that I can tie it into Cultist Simulator. But maybe we'll talk about it another time. But if you are interested, especially if you're interested in history, it's an exceptional book in my opinion. I'm really enjoying reading it. But Ragnus Domi, hey everybody, you're mad at Twitch for notifying you today. Oh, not notifying you today. Well, that's fine. I will warn you that we've probably only got another hour of Cultist Simulator, but we are going to be doing some more streaming. So thank you very much for hanging out. And a little Cultist Simulator is better than no Cultist Simulator. So, and of course the VOD will be up for 2 weeks, and then oh, you answered my question above. Let me just take a look. Where do we have it? Oh, sorry, Casual Nothing. I was talking about Johnny Big Time. I saw you wrote something and then I missed it because I wrote the other. So it was an enlightenment victory. You were holding out to be able to enter through all the Mantis doors, which you did get. The Peacock took a while. You played blind without looking up anything, so it took some time to things. Yeah, so enlightenment was my first victory as well, and you basically had the same experience that I did. I don't know if you got as excited as I did, but like I remember I was kind of shaking it. It was like, this is it. This is going to be the run. I'm not going to lose, and it was wonderful. I think that first victory is the thing that makes all of the frustration with like some of the deaths worthwhile. It's why I prefer that people not look up guides, because if you haven't earned that win, it just doesn't feel the same in my opinion. All right, this is the one time I'm sad to get a furtive truth because it would have been so nice to get an occult scrap. But anyways. In my sleep, I came to the high, jagged rock, which is called the Temple of the Wheel, though the hour called the Wheel is long extinct. Another hand had scratched a secret in the black lantern on its flank. I burned that secret into my memory to preserve for waking before the Velvet came out of the Velvet wood depths and erased it. The Velvet is jealous of her secrets. Okay. So I think we'll jump straight back into the wood for now. I've got the passion for it. Arthos wood. The pines grow thick as hairs on a dog's back. The airs of the inner wood are chokingly thick with resin and dust. The source that brought you here claimed that in the dawn times, the greatest tree at the wood's black heart served as a perch for the great masked crow. And we might as well throw that furtive truth in because we still need to unlock Kersham. Odd nooks remain in the quiet countryside here and there for those who know where to look. And I think I'm just going to have to admit that I'm going to run out of space here, so we'll move these to the side. Technically they don't count as the negative things, but I've sort of abandoned that convention anyway. Put this down below. The notoriety has been taken care of by my comrade. The standards of Daylight Society cannot apply to us, but perhaps we won't emphasize that point. Perhaps we'll rely on charm and good humor. I've supplied elegant platitudes about the high principles of our organization. Alright, so we've got some money for our troubles. And I will turn my body into funds yet again. You were so excited, you love this game, you died once by fascination before and said, never again! Alright, what else can we do here? I think we will stay the course. I probably should have waited a little bit so that I could heal up, but the affliction will be taken care of. Alright, I also need to be wary of restlessness, but I can paint that away if in the worst case scenario. And then with luck, I'll be able to start upgrading a few of these believers, although I do think I should go on a bit of a recruitment drive as well. Optimism is the spice which saves. So, I think I'll do the rounds of upgrading, at least one of each aspect that I have. And then we'll maybe consider either bringing in some new bodies or upgrading what I have already. Is it just you or is the stream a little quiet today? Well, I do know, so I've noticed for some reason if I talk just a little bit off of the mic that the level gets to be about the same as the game. But if I speak directly into the mic like this, usually it should go through. So it could be that I'm just messing up my placement here. Ragnastomi. Overall, though, I will say that my own experience of Twitch is such that if you change the volume on one channel, it tends to apply it for all. It's very easy to forget that that's been changed. Also, if you play with your mixer settings at all on Windows, that's another secret one that can kind of go in and you just wind up cranking everything to keep it going. But my levels should be what they previously were. I haven't changed them, and there hasn't been a driver update too. Usually, if I have a driver update, it makes everything too loud rather than too soft. I guess I can take a quick look at my sound settings though. Sorry, I'm gonna need a moment to pause here and just take a look. Oh, not a lot of activity in chat. Well, I mean, I did also have a lower viewership. Usually that tends to happen if I start late. I did also announce earlier inside of the... earlier that I wouldn't be doing Cultist Simulator today because I genuinely thought that I would not be able to do that. So I think I bear a little of the responsibility for that as well. You know, I'm going to be able to use this to upgrade one of my followers. We'll give it a try at least. But yeah, so if I start late, or if I also think there'll generally be fewer people in here because I didn't because I said that I wouldn't be doing Cultist Simulator, and we will be switching games in just a little under an hour. But yeah, and I try not to, so I do pay attention to the numbers because I think there's useful information that comes through on it, but I also I think there's a tendency, I actually sometimes think I run into this problem personally. But I know I've been in broadcasts where people talk about the numbers all the time. I think it's actually fine for viewers to talk about it because, you know, I like it that they feel like they're part of the cast and they care about how well it's sort of taking up and things like that. So I'm actually reasonably happy when people do that. But yeah, I have been in some broadcasts where people really obsess about the the number of people who are following the broadcast and that. And I tend to find it a little unattractive for broadcasters, because in the end it tells me that they're a little bit less worried about the people who are inside of the broadcast, the people who are actually enjoying the content, that rather than they're sort of pursuing some external target that may not necessarily be there. There's lots of reasons why people won't necessarily watch a broadcast at the moment. So, but the other thing too is that if the chat is quiet, that's just an excuse for me to keep talking about things. Either I haven't given people an interesting thing to talk about, or they're just enjoying the sound of the broadcast on their own. So it's sort of my job to make sure that I keep things moving in their own right, rather than waiting for somebody to interact with. Oh yeah, no, it's no big deal. I don't think anybody. I don't think. I mean, one of the ways people tend to troll streamers is to say that the sound isn't good, especially when there's like obviously a small caster and a large number of people are coming in. I usually know how to deal with that. But the other thing is that sound problems are so hard to diagnose. I'm gonna get the peculiar rumor just because it'll give me access to a new follower. It may be, I may pay for it in the form of notoriety, but I think that's a price that's worth paying. But yeah, sound problems are always so hard to diagnose. So I like to at least acknowledge the fact that somebody said something, and do my best to sort of explain why it may not necessarily be something on my end. But I would much rather people tell me when things are not working properly, and then I can just decide whether or not it's the way I want the channel to go. I remember
when I was doing the Caius voice like this, I was getting the message, oh, this sounds really terrible because people are not used to hearing voices like this.
But yeah, I mean, it's a pre-recorded video, and I was able to listen to the sound quality before it went on, so they can say that it's terrible all they want. I'm not going to change it. So my view is that it's better that I keep things open enough that people can tell me when the stream isn't working, and then I can make the judgment based on the information that I have about whether or not it's worthwhile following. Okay, so let's do the peculiar rumor. I think I'm going to keep my heart disciple on deck in response to that, and we will go back to the woods in hopes of finding another occult scrap. Siam is not used to hearing such voices from System Shock. The end is near. That's of course he gets the attention right around the time I'm gonna get notoriety. Oh my god, this is horrible. Oh, but it's only 30 seconds, so I should be in good shape. Okay, so glimmering and double glimmering, 2 glimmerings. I don't know what I was thinking. I need to be really mindful about the next step on my dream. Otherwise, this is going to turn into decrepitude. And actually, I mean, it's worth mentioning too. So to this point, we cede our mouths to the thunder, we cede our feet to the dance, we cede our skins to the night. We do not cease, we do not cease, we do not cease. Enid sees what others do not. It is becoming difficult for her, but it is very useful. I forgot to read the upgrades for Leo Disciple. Leo still yearns to preserve what is good and valuable, but he understands that to protect one's ideals, one must sometimes do questionable things. But yeah, like even on the backseating things, like I sort of understand that I lose a potential group of viewership over the backseating, but the thing is that I've really found that no matter what I do, it can't be stopped. And generally what happens is if you let one case of backseating go through, all of a sudden the entire chat is telling you how to play the game. And that's the fastest way for me to stop enjoying a game. And everybody loses in that case because it becomes very obvious when I don't enjoy a game. And I think people can pick up on that really quick anyway. And as a result, it's just not fun. Nobody likes watching somebody being angry at a game or not enjoying themselves. So I trade off the possibility that an audience will be turned off by the way that I sort of shoot that down right away, but that's weighed against the cost of the fact that the stream will basically die if I let that sort of stuff go through. It's probably an area of growth for me as a streamer, but at the moment I've not been able to, I have tried. I used to make it so that it would, like, you'd have carte blanche to be just as rude as you wanted to people in chat, and I would, like, usually put on a big show of, like, yelling at people and stuff like that, which was entertaining enough for an audience for a while, but I've stopped doing, especially when I start doing broadcasts of, like, games that I've been given a key for, and that's usually just because I sort of figured that if you've given somebody a key to sort of present your game in a certain light or in a certain way, maybe it's not the best PR in the world if you've got some guy like screaming at an audience member for telling them how to play a game. But to give you an idea of how ridiculous it's gotten, I've had somebody who I've actually met in person who was telling me how to play BattleTech even though it was before the game was released. Like, it was quite literally at the second the embargo was lifted. Nobody else had played it at that time, and they were telling me how to play the game. So it comes from a certain perspective. Anyway, all of that is to say, it's it's one of these ones where you take the information that you can get. I like to try and make things in a situation where people can communicate, even if it was just straight up annoying and it was sort of like, I made these settings myself, I know they're the best. I can probably get over myself long enough to hear from other people when the stream isn't working for them. I may not be able to fix it, but I would prefer to be in a situation where people are able to communicate things that aren't working about the stream for them, even if it's not complimentary to me, than just to sit down and pretend that all of my settings are perfect and then just wind up broadcasting something that can't be displayed for an hour and a half. That was a really long way of saying that, but let me just catch up with chat really quickly. We've got Siam who says, hello, Chalk and Chat. Just got back from your dusty university library, just not to miss the stream. Well, I will always say that your studies are the most important, but I am very happy to have you here, Siam. And if you're able to manage both, if you're able to do what I'm not able to do in Cultist Simulator, then I am very excited to have you here. But if you feel like you're going to be able to get maybe from, an A- to an A as a result of spending some extra time at the university, I will personally not be offended if you do better at school as a result of not watching me. But if on the other hand you were just going to play video games instead, then absolutely 100% you need to be here and I'll be taking attendance. I think that's pretty fair. You personally think it's annoying when streamers insist on playing games they don't like or in a way that they don't like. You can't imagine. Yeah, well, this is the funny thing. I think, so one of the reasons why I did that is it's so out of character. Like, it's definitely performative. It's not to say I wasn't annoyed. It's just, like, my displays of annoyance tend not to be, like, running around and throwing things. But that doesn't mean that you can't play the shouty man on Twitch. So I think for a while, because the majority of people who were watching that were in the know, it would be a little bit easier for people to sort of get it, like, because it's uncharacteristic, right? If I did that regularly, I think that would be a problem. That's usually the point where people are like, this guy seems like he has rage problems. What I tended to notice was I got, like, some people just straight up said, it's like, you've got mental health issues, you need to get them treated or something like that. But I always noticed when it was like they were able to sit through it and, like, laugh like everybody else until they were the target. And then, of course, then it's just the worst thing in the world and you can't talk to people that way. But the challenge is, like, this is just an example of things that change as channels grow. As the channel has grown, there are more people, and it also means that just the channel winds up being higher in the ranks over time. And so that means that if I were to just cut loose on somebody in a way that, it might have previously worked with a smaller audience that is kind of in the know, that could be something that really turns people off. And as a result, it makes the stream, not worthwhile to watch. Some people don't want to experience something like that, and they're completely within their rights to say that. I don't particularly like streams like that myself. So, is it a loss? In a very literal sense of like, I don't do something that I used to do on very rare occasions when people were particularly annoying about backseating? Sure. Do I think it's like a bad thing that the stream isn't like that? Not really. I think it was something that was appropriate for a short little while. I think people who were, I think everybody who is there got the message that they were supposed to, but I don't think it's appropriate moving forward, and so that's why I don't really do that anymore. You're not able to improve the grade, to be honest. You got your hurl of Sybil and Attis, the Myth and the Cult by Martin J. Vamerson. Shouldn't I stay here? I have no idea what that is, Siam. If you want to tell the chat what it's about, I would be very interested. But this is actually funny story. There was a stream that I modded for, and I actually banned a viewer for like a couple of hours because they said that they were in class. And as a TA, I was pretty annoyed by that because the big problem is like, so what you do with your own education is your own thing. I will say though, like if you're at a university and you're not taking the studies seriously, like there was somebody who was not admitted to that university so that you could be there. And so obviously you should be putting as much as you can into your studies, because the person who wasn't let inside the university very well could have, right? That was the way that I always looked at it. And believe me, it's tough. I did stream while I was in university, and I actually think overall it probably would have been better if I didn't. Obviously, you're all here, for one reason or another enjoying my stuff, so I know that's not an opinion that's going to be shared by everyone, but I think if I could do it all over again, I probably would have avoided the streaming until after school. But yeah, they were always like, no, I'm doing really good in my class. I'm like, yeah, but you are watching on a laptop in a room with one, a lecturer who is deserving of your respect, and two, other people are in the class who now have to see your monitor with other stuff going on. And I have read the studies that talk about how distracting that is for other students. So it's like, I can't stop you from watching, but I can definitely stop you from bragging in chat about the fact that you're not paying attention to school. Fortunately, to that caster's credit, they backed me up on it. But needless to say, I was the bad guy for the rest of the month. Ah, it's a shame. The well in the wood is sacred to the Grail, the hour that hungers, and to the velvet, the hour that guards secrets. Tonight, as I approached, it heaved with the velvet's moss, struggling waves of deep and vibrant green, pulsing again and again from its throat. It surged around my calves, rose to my thighs, and this morning I still feel the velvet's breath strong within me. By the way, I will also mention, if you're currently watching this stream while you are... Okay, if you're in a classroom, you probably should close your laptop and pay attention to the lecturer. But if you're giving up your studies to watch this broadcast, please be sure to like, subscribe, and let your friends know about it, preferably the other people who are on the margins of failing the course, because if you're going to fail, you need to fail for the right reasons. Come early, come often. No. Please take care of your studies. An unpromising address, but a promising resident. Cat Caro. So I believe the Charm Offensive is already on its way. The reason why I sort of front-loaded that... Uh-oh, hang on. Yes, he's only considering the evidence, so good news there. So I front-loaded this just so I can minimize the time that the notoriety is on the table. The stream makes you want to check whether there are cultish books in your university library. You think you found the right one. That's so funny. That came up earlier, Siam. I have a feeling that Weather Factory is going to be responsible for another moral panic. Well, actually, you know what? Maybe they'll just do the Rockstar route and deliberately try and generate a moral panic. Like they'll plant a couple of unscrupulous journalists with these stories of viewers who wound up getting into, I don't know, like, is your child participating in Grail orgies? Look for the 5 signs. And a bunch of free publicity as a result of all of those nerds playing Cultist Simulator in the middle of the night, pretending that they're actually getting some. Ragnus Domi says, that makes you wonder, do teachers in first world countries, universities actually care about whether people are learning or not? I cared a lot, Ragnus Domi. I will say at my lecture, so the deal I made with my students when I was TAing econ, I couldn't do this for computer science because participation in the labs was part of, like, you had to do that to get your grade. But I did principles of microeconomics. So when I was in grad school, my first term was as a research assistant again. And I specifically asked to be a teaching so like usually, like, not that I want to brag, but usually you're a research assistant if you're like, you know, they kind of like take their pick first, and then whatever's left over for the people who do have a financial package, they give them the TA jobs. So I if I wanted, I could do research the whole time, but I enjoy teaching, and I enjoy presenting. Obviously, I'm a Twitch streamer, right? So I did specifically ask, you know, unless somebody was like, no, he is the chosen one, you know, the profession will never be the same if he doesn't grind out equations on this particular paper. Like, that's, you know, there are limits to my ego. It's not quite that bad, but the deal that I made with my micro class was this. It's like, you know, because it was like I think it was like a 5 o'clock lecture, or it was a 5 o'clock TA like presentation, and then I do office hours and stuff like that. So I kind of said to people, like, look, you know, I've got a 2-hour commute one way. I know what it's like to be at school late. I know you guys have other priorities and other classes, and I do not want to waste your time. So I said, the deal is this. I am obligated to take attendance, but I don't think the prof is going to get too mad at me if I let you know that this is a mechanism to make you feel like this needs to be something that you need to be at. There's just something about signing that paper that makes you pay attention. And more importantly, I'm going to use it for the second part. And that is, I'm pretty open for office hours. But if my econ office hours or anything like my computer science office hours, I'm going to be a very lonely person for the first few weeks of this course. And that's great because I've got a research paper I want to work on. But I also know the week before the midterm, I'm going to become the most popular person in this building. And I'm probably not going to have time to get to all of you. And if that happens, the deal is this. If you've been showing up to these lectures, you get priority. And if you've not been showing up, then I will try and get to your problem. But you will be at the very back of the list because I can't be sure that you've already done the work required to ask a sensible question. So I had generally good attendance. There was like 2 guys who didn't show up, and I'd love to tell you, and they failed the course. They didn't. They, you know, I think one of them got like a C+, one of them got a B-. You know, I'm assuming they got what they wanted out of the course. Never talked to me. I never talked to them. I didn't treat their exams any differently, but, you know, that was that. But the other condition was that they could have laptops. But it's like, you know, I've done the comp sci thing. I've stood at the back of the lecture. It is obvious when you are not paying attention to the lecture. And so if you're going to do that outside. Like, you are not getting anything out of it, and you're distracting the other people beside you. So, you know, again, same rule, and don't let us both go through the embarrassment of me kicking you out of the class because you're watching YouTube. Which is obviously a really long speech to give at the beginning. And there was one kid I needed to say, like, I basically just said, you know, I'm like, you know, I pointed them out. I'm like, do you actually want to be here? And it's just a simple sorry, and they put the laptop away, and that was that. I did not actually kick them out of the class. But I kind of figure that you just need to show that you actually mean it when you're saying, I know that you are looking at stuff that's not this. Like, they're not looking at YouTube. They're not looking for econ lectures on YouTube. That much is sure. So that was sort of the deal. And I think, I don't know, I liked teaching it a lot. I do get some pretty polarized results. Whenever you read that kind of feedback, you always chop away the like, this guy is the second coming of Kenneth Arrow, and like you also chop off the this guy's a straight up scumbag ones. Like I want to read the ones that say that I'm a genius, and I want to ignore the ones that say that I'm bad. I definitely got a lot of this guy goes on too many tangents and he talks too much. I agree, that is a problem, but I also know that there's an equal number that say the anecdotes that he told really grounded the material. They were a little bit long, but I actually got something out of them. And I haven't personally, I mean, obviously as a broadcaster, I haven't found a way to divide that either. Yeah, I don't know. I missed a bunch of chat, but there's a little bit of a story. If you were one of my students, by the way, you can maybe decide whether or not that's a fair representation of my lecturing style. But I will admit too, I was a reasonably harsh marker, but it was because my passing grades, you needed to just show a rudimentary understanding of the concept. So it was hard to fail with me, but it was also hard to get perfect marks if you didn't master the subject. And I know some people didn't like that, and some people thought that was reasonably fair. I did feel bad, though, for the student that kind of wrote like a begging letter on the back of their exam, because I did unfortunately have to give a failing grade. But I also know that, that is not a responsibility of mine. Let me just take a quick second. So yeah, that's a really long answer to Agnes Domi's question about whether or not teachers in first world countries, universities actually care whether people are learning or not. I also think it depends, because some teachers just have to do that as part of their obligations, and they don't like teaching. But my experience has usually been that the better researchers are also people who like teaching, and I think it's because they get ideas from the teaching. So. Kaya LB said, speaking of, welcome by the way, was listening to a podcast today talking about cults and why they often start. Did you have any big takeaways from that, or should we be listening to the podcast? Incidentally, there was a cult one that I heard. There's a pretty good investigative, or I guess it's a true crime podcast. If you guys are interested in the CBC, it's called, I believe it's called Uncover, Uncovering NXIVM or something like that. It's horrifying stuff, but it's also really interesting, because people who worked on Smallville were involved with it, and that was one of the shows that I worked on. So I was like, oh my god, all this stuff was going on, and I was there. Like, I remember hearing about, like, I didn't realize it was a cult thing, but it's like, oh Jesus, like, I actually kind of know that thing that they just mentioned. That's horrifying. Casual Nothing had a wonderful line here. It's 10 p.m. Do you know what your child is summoning? And The Eyes of Sin says most teenager girls have attempted blood sacrifices, albeit in more of a prick your finger over some rune circles, but blood sacrifices nonetheless. I did not know this. Siam says the school life is a lie, the college life is poison. Join us. And The Eyes of Sin says you certainly wrote some blood runes around candles at least once in your life just to see what might happen. Did you summon anything? Ragnus Domi says, you mean, I do think you seem pretty passionate about sharing knowledge and stuff, but university teachers can sound like they're much more worried about bragging than teaching. I was wondering if that actually could become a reason for students to be demotivated. I definitely think that's true. I have not had universally good instructors, and I can definitely tell you that some of the instructors that I've known have specifically had ego problems that have resulted in me not learning as much as I could have. I think there was a certain level of responsibility on the student's part as well. I think a good student with a bad teacher can still pull something out of the course. I think a good student with a great teacher can really make something special. But of course, you also need to worry about the average students who are unfortunately subjected to the professor's sort of ego session. And I feel that that's what the feedback is about. As someone with problems attending classes, you think that's a pretty interesting tactic. Oh, that's cool. Kyle B says, a lot of cults, at least according to the host, start from people who are either down on their luck or have nothing better to do. Like you have a guy who's like, what's the worst that could happen? Yeah, so basically their outside option is fairly low, so they just go for this thing that potentially has a high payoff, even if it's a slim one. And Eyes of Sin says, sadly nothing was summoned aside from some Neosporin and a Band-Aid. And Siam says, with all due respect, you're kind of leaning to conclude that the protagonist of Cultist Simulator indeed has nothing better to do. Well, if you think of it, right? So because I talked about how I'm an econ TA, here's how I would explain the choices that are faced. So the character that you face at the beginning of Cultist Simulator, you have a desire. Well, you eventually develop that desire, but essentially you have sort of this continuation of. You've got this succession of expenses that keep coming up. And the trade-offs that you face usually tend to be things like, will I go on this expedition? Will I upgrade this individual? You know, how should I be using my Explore token is sort of the idea that we come up to here. Now, the fact of the matter is that your job may keep you with a roof over your head. But if you do have some passion or some ambition, if I want to change, the game is specifically creating this pain for me by not fulfilling it. And sometimes that pain will be to a level that really bad things happen to me. It turns into dread, which potentially can turn into something that will lose the game. And so in this sense, you know, founding the cult is as much a sort of getting rid of the bad as it is pursuing a good on its own. Now, obviously, you sort of get faced with this choice of maybe pursuing a more mundane existence at Glover and Glover or something like that. But I think the game definitely is full of some of the trade-offs that you have, and that while you don't necessarily have sort of... I mean, the big thing about a game is that you know... Like, you're playing the game. You want something to happen. It's why, like, if you're given an option to do something in a game, I got really annoyed by Torment Tides of Numenera because it, so Tides of Numenera starts you off with this, like, you're falling towards the Earth scenario. And like whenever I'm faced with something like that, I tend to do the embrace the madness option. Like, you're obviously going to go slamming into the ground. Why not lean into that and see what happens? And to my belief, the game at no point gave me any indication that following that path could actually lead me to slamming into the ground where I could be saved through other means. Like, it's a totally unprecedented experience for me. I have personally never fallen from like close to like orbiting the Earth to the ground. So I'm just gonna follow this strange scenario that I find myself in and discover if it's a dream or whatever. Well, it turns out after this extended period of time of filling out all these little dialogue options, you absolutely can go crashing into the Earth and you have to restart the game. And I was very pissed off with that because I'm like, why would you put that in a game? Like, why is there an option for me to have to redo this dumb, like, seemingly dream sequence because I didn't know that being started off from falling from an untold height and choosing to continue to lean into the fall would result in me dying. Like, I kind of assume I'm dead in normal experience, or in that normal experience anyway. So in a game like Cultist Simulator, you can rely on the fact that the player, me, is going to want to do something. Like, nobody opens up a game like Cultist Simulator and says, I just want to have a subsistence existence. You want to like start summoning the alien gods and looking at the lore and such. You want to figure out what's going on, and so you can sort of rely on people doing things that might be a little dangerous to their health in the name of pushing the story forward. Now, you can't let them get away with murder because then you just don't respect the game and you'll do any stupid thing no matter what. So with that in mind, in the case of I think the best I can say is, like, in life, it's absolutely... I think everybody can relate to this experience of, like, lying in bed and, like, I don't know what I want to do today. I think I'm just going to stay under the covers. Or, life is meaningless. There's nothing that I can do. We'd all be better if we weren't born, or something like that. But at some point, you're going to get thirsty. And now your motivation is to go and get a glass of water. And then, of course, if you're writing a story, then the tap doesn't work. and now you have an interesting story. But yeah, in terms of like outside options or something like that, like I can definitely believe, like I just don't see people who have a degree of comfort in life. I don't necessarily see how they would find themselves in a certain point where they would feel that they would need to sort of found something like a cult. It doesn't mean that they won't like bamboozle people or something like that. And I suppose there are examples of people who have been well off enough who have some kind of conviction to, like, I guess the cult founded by someone who doesn't have a lot of options in life is going to look rather different from the thing that someone who comes from a background of wealth will look like. And I think that's potentially a reflection of the options that they have, basically in terms of, you know, if you're going to become a con man of some kind, not that that's what this is inside here, but if you're going to become a con man of some kind, chances are it's because you prefer that over like safe cracking or something like that. So, guys, speaking of the evil works of Satan, does anyone play Magic? I used to. I was not allowed to play Magic for a very long time because my aunt is an Anglican priest and a fairly orthodox one, let's say. I know Anglicans are supposed to be like the cool Christians, but she's one of those people who likes all the old-fashioned stuff. I don't know if there's such a thing as evangelical Anglicanism, but she would be part of it, I would say. I'm safe for now. My adversary has not enough evidence to bring a case against me, and they found no new clues. And they won't find any new clues in 14 seconds. So it took a while, and I was only allowed to play a white deck for a while. But an overlooked place I might have found somewhere unusual. Tonight, I sense an opportunity. Tonight I could attract attention if I cease to hold back, if I commit myself more fully. So I'll put the more than a listen package of flesh and blood. I did deal with the heal. Yes, okay, good. Alright, cool. I think I will visit the strange... streets strange by moonlight. Sometimes the light of the moon is the key to other places. I have found a place where for a night or two the streets curve in unfamiliar ways. If I walk here I might find insight, or I might be touched by madness. But I've not played Magic recently. I understand there's supposed to be a fairly good Magic arena, although someone has always pointed out that the most powerful card in Magic is your credit card. But why do you ask, Ragnastomi? Are you looking for people to challenge in the arena? I felt their eyes on me. Afterwards, I received a gift from an admirer. A little too personal for me to feel comfortable, but I can sell it on the second-hand market. What do you guys think the personal gift is? And Eyes of Sin, if you would like a personal gift, feel free to DM me. So just a quick warning, guys, in 24 minutes I'm going to be switching up the games. I'm probably going to turn the cast off for a few minutes just so I can get myself set up and maybe have a little break. I know we didn't make a ton of progress in the game here, although we did digest a whole bunch of books. But I was originally planning on doing this thing earlier. So I hope you guys do hang around, but I'll also understand if I do a long enough break, sort of the fellowship will fall apart and people will move on to their better options. But sadly no, but you were vaguely a Satanist in your youth. I really feel like you should see Silicon Valley. Some classmates told you that there's an online version and you got interested. One of them was actually the one who recommended Cultist Simulator to you. Well, I feel that that's a very good friend to pursue the recommendations from. I will actually say I rather enjoyed, there was a Magic the Gathering game by Sid Meier, which I liked quite a bit. I got it in sort of like it's like I guess a remainder bin. I don't know what you call it when it's software, but like there was we've had this thing on the shelves for a million years sort of thing. Like it was pretty obviously an old game when I picked it up. But it was a Magic the Gathering single player game, and the idea was that like you had your deck, so you were a wizard. Like, you were following the story of Magic the Gathering, at least as it was at that time. You are a wizard, and the deck that you have represents the spells that you know. And you would play for ante, and playing for ante would mean that you would gain new spells, and you would specifically go into dungeons to get some of the rarest and most powerful cards. And I thought that was a really good way of making a computer version of Magic that wasn't just a direct transposition of the game. I didn't dislike Duel of the Planeswalkers or anything like that. I did play, I guess it's like 2015 and it's like 2013, 2014. Anyways, whatever the year numbered Duels of the Planeswalkers were. Those were okay games, but I actually think that original Magic the Gathering game was really well done. And I kind of wish something like GOG or someone would pick that up, because I think there'll probably be something, like, I definitely have a pretty fond memory of it as opposed to, you know, having played it recently, but I have a feeling that it would, you know, it would hold up for the most part, I think. Oh, maybe I should actually be reading. Let's read De Bellis Murorum. That'll give me another edge, I think. The poem elliptically describes the war between beasts, whether phenomena and arcane concept. It's quite specific about their tactics. Sounds like the sort of thing I'd read. All right, no one understands us, or else they understand us too well. Okay, so I've gained a peculiar rumor, which is good. I still have the notoriety, which is not as good. I still have Leo, which is good. So first of all, Fascination's up next, so I have a feeling that I'm going to get... I am probably going to get something nasty in the exploration. I just have a feeling. I'm going to get rid of that restlessness in a novel way. Recruit an acquaintance by invoking heart. So Kat Caro, as she styles herself, earns a living as a stage medium and fortune teller. She may have deeper talents. So that's a convenient way for me to get rid of the restlessness. Got contentment. Visions pass me with pavane grace. A window over a wood, a garden of ice, a shivering sun, a woman of glass. I will return home reluctantly. So let's follow this peculiar rumor. I'll obviously gain more notoriety for it, but I think that's worth the cost. Siam is Korean, born in 1995, the same year the Japanese cult gas attacked the Tokyo metro. Pogrom ensured for years after that. Yeah, that's another thing I need to consider. Obviously, so this is actually something that Cultist Simulator itself has recognized, because in the case of the United States, like, you know, when you think about, like, if you're from the States and you hear cults, you tend to think of things like the Branch Davidians, or just like all of these, like, almost like paramilitary groups, which is very clearly not what's going on here. Or then, you know, I guess depending on, you know, which parts you're from. I know some people kind of think of Scientology and or even Mormonism in those lights, but that's obviously very different from what people tend to think. You know, the sorts of things that come to mind when you think of American style cults is definitely very different from what this is, which is something a little bit more along the lines of like the Shriners or that. Like, there may be sinister things going on in this cult, but it's not sort of like, you know, you're not secretly plotting the overthrow of the government or something like that here. It's a little bit more like, you know, this is the thing that's kind of neat. Like, I really like doing some of these these charm offensives with heart, because, you know, I like this idea of that your cult is kind of gaining enough notoriety. You know, there can be some of these sinister rumors that are going around about it, but you're not so... like, it's not so unsavory that people won't listen to your more convincing followers. And in fact, even when they fail, you gain those rumors, and you're able to recruit people inside of it. So you can sort of imagine the outside world is finding, they just find you to be this very odd group of people who might believe in some fairly wacky things. And obviously people would be looking on the outside and say, it's like, well, clearly they're just a little, overly fond of this famous dancer that even Lord Timothy or Nicole, the fourth Marchioness of Stanford, were interested in at one point. So eventually these people will wake up and realize that, Roland isn't all that. So East Asians still hate magic. Yeah, and this is the other thing, is that, like, obviously depending on your background or depending on what country you're from, the idea of a cult can mean very different things. And I definitely don't have a catalog of all of that. But yes, I will not drink the Kool-Aid, Siam. All right. I'm going to try really quickly. I'll see whether or not we can finish studying De Bellis Murorum, and then I think I'm probably going to call it for tonight. But I'm going to, if I don't respond to chat, it's just because I want to try and close this off on an appropriate note. So dreaming-wise, I think I still want to try and get, the occult scraps. Tonight I sense opportunity. Tonight I could attract attention if I cease to hold back, if I commit myself more fully. Obviously the restlessness would have been nice for that, but I have other options. The ceremony is resonant as thunder in the church. I know it well. I wrote it myself. Kat Caro, a bright-eyed, watchful woman who recalls her dreams perfectly. Okay, so now I think I'm going to use Leo to do the charm offensive again. Obviously, it's not great that I have only one person that I can rely on for this stuff, but I'll do the best. Obviously, I can upgrade him too to make him even better at this thing, but not everyone is sympathetic to our aims. But if we have problems with our reputation, our disciple can probably smooth them over. Actually, hang on. I think Leo is like the... Maybe he isn't. I think there's still... No, I think there's still another level that I can bring him up, so... I felt all their eyes upon me. Afterwards, I received a gift from an admirer. A little too personal for me to feel comfortable, but I can sell it on the second-hand market. Okay, I can finally write that lantern treatise I've been meaning to, so let's take that Mansis glimpse, and I believe we need reason? Yep. So I'll put a spin tray in my pocket. That comment was about the Mormon therapy schools. Japanese cult attacks sounded like terrorism to you. You even thought of contemplating so as terrorism, but you didn't want to put a label on something that wasn't part of your reality. I remember reading a news article about the gas attacks, but I'll admit I'm not nearly as... This is the challenge, of course, is that if something happens halfway across the world, it's much easier to have that fall out of your sort of your reckoning than if it's closer, because obviously, the fact of the matter is that the closer you are to it, the more likely you are to see changes. So for instance, after a school shooting, I can remember some people. Now, I mean, so this is because I was in a church-going family. It would tend to be a pretty broad distribution of people that I knew. So I know people who were much younger than me. I'd also know people who were much older than me. And we'd all, we had this common thing together, so we'd just sort of hang out. And I know... I kind of think that this was just more so the excuse to do this rather than the, rather than the actual reason. But there was a school shooting in the United States, And even though I'm in Canada and there isn't really a strong reason for someone to fear that there would be a school shooting, I can know some kids who were pulled out of school and homeschooled directly as a result of that fear that somebody would shoot a school in Canada. Now, again, that's not a rational fear, but it's obviously, I think part of that, in addition to just, the nature of that particular family, I think proximity to the States was a factor in that. And I have a feeling that if we were in, Malaysia or Vietnam or something like that, a school shooting in the United States would probably not have been the reason that that particular kid was pulled out of school. Again, I personally think that that was bound to happen no matter what. I think that the parents were likely looking for a reason and that anyone would have done. But in this particular case, I know that people, and I also know, like in Canada, there was definitely talk in terms of what if this happens here. Even again, if I personally think that probably the fear in Canada is not that big. Like, I just don't think the same things that go into school shootings in the States exist in Canada. Now, we do incidentally have that problem. There have been actually some really tragic ones that have happened inside of Canada. I just think that they are different, like the specifics of those cases were different, and I think they invite a different kind of response rather than just immediately assuming because it happened in the States we need to prepare for a US style shooting. I just don't think that's as relevant. So anyways, I probably should just shut up about this because I don't really know what I'm talking about. The 1-2 joined and the Horde distinguished, consequently blood. What a terrible way to finish the stream too. This is the bone deep story of 1,000 men learnt in antiquity of blood and its exits. To speak it aloud is to hear the sword hiss. Use this in a rite with a corpse and winter power, and the corpse will rise. But we're a good cultist, and we are not going to generate corpses. Alright, well, we'll read what we can of the Orchid Transfigurations. Oh, I didn't translate this. What a fool. So we'll start our translation. We'll get all the plates spinning. Let's get, I think I'll get the rumor dealt with. Okay, so there's a fleeting remembrance I'll stick upstairs because I don't really have much to do with it. I don't think I'll have any vitality in time, but I have enough worldly resources to be able to weather it. And we'll see what happens with the rumors. So we now have 2 notoriety. And we found Yazbit. Yazbit has always been most comfortable by moonlight. She has excellent night vision. She is often overlooked in daylight. Alright. So we'll figure out what to do with exploration a little bit later, but we are now at 11:21, so I have 9 minutes before this thing unlocks. I'm sorry that I ended on probably an example of me talking about something that I don't really know what I'm talking about and probably should have just shut up on. What we'll be doing, very likely not next week because I believe I'll be at the Dirty Rectangles meetup. But what we'll be trying to do is to clear out the exploration that we can, upgrade some followers, finally make it to Kersham so I can use my guys as a Viper and start advancing the Change of the Leaf. And really, we're not going to be getting any more books until I start exploring these areas, so it's a fairly natural progression. I will be picking up. I'll sort of be picking up what I can here. I definitely have... This is one of the things that I've struggled with the most in the game. I feel like I don't recruit enough followers early enough. And clearly I've got too much money, not enough followers, and this is an example of probably where I've not used my priorities in the right order. But it's a big learning process. I'm enjoying the Dancer, and we are continuing on finding new and interesting things inside the game. We got our first wound for Sylvia, appropriate, because of her eye. So I'll just quickly read a little bit of chat. I said, you grew up with people who would talk about planning something horrible like taking weapons to school and killing people. You remember some kids in one of your classes joking about it and idolizing shooters from famous incidents. They spent a lot of time in the principal's office, but when you went to schools in lower income areas, they just sort of sent them to therapy and eventually to juvie and probably didn't address the issue. You were bullied a lot, and you remember one of that group telling you that I was nice and so you would be fine, which is scary. You're glad that they didn't ever actually. Yeah, I'm glad for it too, Eyes of Sin. I don't know what would have happened in that case, but I'm really sorry to hear that. On that rather sobering note, I do actually need a little bit of time off of cast. I have a feeling that the update won't work. So I do encourage you guys, if you can, hang out. I'm going to try and be back as close to 11:30 as I can. I am going to be doing Battlefield 5, which I know may not necessarily be for everyone, but there's something that I actually wrote for Battlefield, well, notes that I wrote for Battlefield 1, which I never actually got to deliver, and I was a little disappointed on. So we're going to do something a little special after the introduction for Battlefield 5, which I've not touched yet. That's the reason I've been waiting until 11:30, because that's when it unlocks for me. So I'm going to need a little time to set this up. I think I'm going to give myself a bit of a break as well, because it has been almost 3 hours. But I really do hope, I mean, especially if you've been hosting, but no, I really do hope you guys hang out for that, because I know this game is not everyone's cup of tea. I know that people tend to like it when I do little indie things like that. But I am going to at least do the prologue, and we're going to have, it's going to be the first time that I actually switch to the Just Talking channel. So we're going to, we're actually going to have a little bit of a discussion in terms of that, and specifically a couple of things about Battlefield 1 as well that I didn't get a chance to talk. So if you guys enjoy some of the dialogues and monologues, I hope you get a chance, because it's, again, it's something that I wanted to do a while ago, and it's finally a chance for me to return to. But if not, I understand, and we'll catch you later. Obviously, I've got a much healthier number of people here than I had before. So, but I leave it with that. I'll be back in probably 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how long it takes me to set up. I'll also do another announcement on Twitch. But for now, I encourage you guys to get up, maybe have a little bit of stretch, get a glass of water, and with any luck, I will see you guys in a few minutes. And on YouTube, I'll see you in the next video if that's your kind of thing. So you have to take off for the night. Good to see you, Miss Chuck. Thank you very much for hanging out, Casual Nothing. And yes, to all of you who won't be coming back for the round 2, have a wonderful evening. Thank you for making it such a wonderful broadcast. Even if you just lurked, it does mean a lot that I have people watching this stuff. So do not apologize at all for that, the Eyes of Sin. I know we've talked about stuff like that before, but we haven't talked... we haven't actually talked that much in detail, so if it's actually something you'd like to return to in a private chat, don't shy away from that. I think it's better to talk about that stuff than let it be bottled up. But anyways, I gotta go. I will see you later. I am sorry for ending so abruptly. Please do not take that as me not wanting to discuss these things. We can leave that for another chat for sure. Have a good night, guys, and see you in 5 or 10 minutes.